Welcome everybody. This is awesome. This is really great turnout. This is we're here to chat about some conference things, a couple showcasing things. We're all here. Either you're a first-time showcaser, like you're attending a conference for the very first time, or you're a veteran, but maybe there's a few things that you can kind of touch on just for reaching out to industry or for setting up meetings. First things first, I really want to say a huge thank you to Creative Saskatchewan and Factor for all their financial support, as well as just like support in general, because it allows us to be able to do wonderful workshops such as this one. But not only that, because of like the theme is like showcase and conference prep, that Creative Sask is a huge supporter for us and for you to actually go out and attend these things. So, well, it's not just like Creative Sask, it's also Factor too. But yeah, so we just want to say huge thank you to that. My name is Kalen Kleipak. I am the program manager at SaskMusic. I also run the Saskatoon office. This is Marvin. I'm going to let him introduce himself because it's a real treat to have Marvin here, because Marvin probably in the past 2 years has done some like really like incredible international things, not just on like a showcasing and a conference level, as well as like connecting with like delegates and like building up that presence. So I'm just going to let Marvin just like talk just a little bit about how like the past 2 years have gone.
Hey guys, I'm Marvin. I play in a hip hop R&B band called Samurai Champs, and I also run an artist collective here called Trifecta. We do a music festival and concert series, and more so in the last 2 years, we started focusing more on exporting our artists from Saskatchewan outwards. Just because, especially in our genre, which mainly revolves around hip hop and R&B, a lot of these genres don't really exist in our industry in Saskatchewan, so we need to reach outwards. And we've had a lot of success somehow. A lot of it's because of the guidance we get from SaskMusic and a lot of the financial support we get from Creative Sask. So tapping into all those resources are super key if you want to kind of hop the career steps.
Cool. All right. And before we begin, I also want to just acknowledge that we would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is Treaty 4 and Treaty 6 territory and the traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Assiniboine, and Métis. We pay our respect for the First Nation and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. Okay. We got 9 pages worth of stuff, so I'm so pumped to be talking about this, because it's one of those areas that like our competition isn't necessarily in Saskatchewan. Like, don't see another band as competition here. Your competition are bands from New York, from Austin, Texas, from Germany. Like when you're planning on going out to attend a conference or like you get accepted to showcase, it's one of those things that we're all in this together. A win for somebody is actually a win for all of us, because it does open up other doors where people are always wondering what else is coming out here, what is next. So don't treat your fellow like band artists within Saskatchewan as competition. Like I said, like think about community and help each other out. And I'm actually going to touch on that a little bit later on. So the very first thing, why don't we just kind of bring up a really loaded question. Like, why don't we just dive right in? So the first thing is attending a conference and or showcase worth it? Yes. Okay, moving on. No, I'm just kidding. Like, okay, so yeah, like conference, absolutely. Let's just split up those two. Let's talk about the conference side first. Conference, 100%. This is one of those places that always works as a hub where industry will go out and attend. And here's a little tip. For any sort of festival to bring out targeted industry, they actually have a requirement that they have to be there and they have to be available, willing to work with bands. So people are there and they're also there like within like the same mindset. So just something to like kind of keep in mind, that a lot of times that if you're thinking about approaching industry, they're expecting you to go out and reach out and to talk to them. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to let Marvin just kind of tap into this just a little bit.
I really agree. It's definitely like 100%. You should go to a conference portion of a festival, even if you're not technically performing or showcasing. A lot of the successes that we've had as a band, a lot of the time we haven't even had a show booked for the festival. With Trifecta, we don't manage other artists, but we kind of help them, we kind of facilitate a lot of their career growth based on what we've done. So sometimes we'll go to a showcase festival that we're not actually showcasing in and help our artists kind of connect with delegates. And this kind of sets you up better for when you actually showcase at the festival. So things that you can do, like the most simple thing is go to the conference itself, go to the seminars. It's pretty much just like school. You just like go watch a lecture. And it's not practical knowledge, but it's theoretical knowledge that you can apply in practice when you do showcase. And more important than that, you also get to see industry faces too. This is usually the best way to actually meet people that are in the industry and kind of plan out how, what do you want to help your career? Do you want a publicist? Do you want to meet with festival bookers so you can get into something else? It's always good to map these things out. And since music industry is more so based on relationships, this is also the best time to meet people face to face too. It's not like a weird thing that you're just cold emailing or cold calling somebody. You can actually look at their lecture or their seminar and be like, hey man, I really agree with these points. Like, would you be down just to grab a coffee after or something? It's and at the end of the day, sometimes it can seem kind of intimidating seeing a publicist or maybe someone that writes for Exclaim or something that you think is like a big deal. But at the end of the day, everybody has either been in a band, played in a band in high school, or just loves music just like you. So for the most part, they're pretty down to hang out anyway. So it's always like a guarantee, yes. If anything, if you don't get an invitation to a showcase festival, I would still say go and just gather some intel, make some friends, and that will most likely set you up better for when you actually get an invitation to showcase at the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for an artist, like if you don't get into a showcase, like I still highly recommend on attending that conference because number one, it's really great to like start gauging on just like how the market is, how people are presenting themselves at showcases. There's always like one-on-one meetings that you can pre-register in advance. That you know, if there are specific people that like, if you just want to go and you're kind of unsure about like what you want to like target, or there is somebody that books like maybe one of your favorite festivals, you know, you can pretty much like go and work as like set up like a proper meeting with them. One of the best ways to go and meet somebody is that after attending a panel, like Marvin was touching on this just a little bit, but like if there is somebody that you want to go and meet, like just go watch the panel and then just immediately go and just like talk to them right afterwards. There is a good chance that there will be a bit of like a swarm of people that will kind of go and just want to shake some hands. But like, even if you get 30 seconds just to get that business card, and then you can start working on that follow-up just to kind of start building up that contact, that is so valuable. Yeah, you know what, like you might as well kind of like go towards the next point, which is professional development, because when you are attending a conference, either like you've been in the industry for a while, or you are, it's a brand new project, like attend those panels, because the industry is always changing and evolving, and just to kind of pinpoint on what's actually happening and kind of who are not necessarily stakeholders, but who's kind of like can like bring out some like key information that will help you progress as an artist. I think that's so valuable to your own personal career. Just see it as professional development, because the more you understand about the business, the more you can start planning those realistic and those marketing plan goals that will kind of start to like map things out on where you want to go. Got anything to add?
I guess also on the professional development side, when you do go to these seminars, you're not only looking for the people that you want to work with. Sometimes, at least in our case, they're kind of looking for the people that they want to work with too. It's not necessarily that there's no shortage of good music or good artists. Like, it's not like people want to work with the most talented artists now. More so, it seems to be a balance between talent and who's the most hardworking, I guess. And we've actually got this comment a whole bunch too, or the artists within Trifecta too. They say another publicist will be on some sort of session or some sort of panel, and then later on when we actually meet them, comment, oh yeah, I've seen you guys at like every single session. And then they'll automatically be inclined to at least be interested to see, because it's almost like, since they know that you're going to show up, why wouldn't you show up when you actually get to start working with them as well? And I'll keep telling, like, I guess little stories, because then that way you can, I guess, see the real benefit of it. Like, one example is One of our artists, Lo, you may know her, spelled Loa. She's like a electronic R&B singer-songwriter from here. And she didn't showcase in BreakOut West 2016. We did, but instead she just came along and just did all the panels, all the sessions, and it just so happened that we passed like a USB to one of the festival bookers, and she got booked for their festival in the UK like the next year. But none of that would have happened if she was like, oh, I'm not going, I'm not playing. She was just there just to learn, just to be open-minded, and she was flexible enough to kind of connect with whoever and maybe like gently get to know people and slip them a sample of their music, of her music, and it did lead to something later on.
Yeah, and one of those things, if finances, like finances can always be an issue on to like withhold on like any sort of like educational opportunities to be attending like any sort of conference. But like we have seen people in the past, like will register as a photographer, and they'll be at like they'll get a schedule and they'll just go and they'll just shoot every single band. And just from that, like they will be there and they get to like meet people, they get to attend the conference, and it just works towards this like a free pass. So just something to kind of like keep in mind. Yeah, that's a really good point about Lo, because there's actually like a couple of musicians that I'm thinking of like just at the top of my head. Like one of them being like Nick Faye, who's just out in the UK right now. He also just showcased at Reeperbahn in Germany just a couple of weeks ago. Nick will always just kind of like go, not kind of, he will go and just like register for a conference, even if he's not like performing. If like, so he actually wanted to gauge to see if Germany would be right for him and his band to go and play. So he just registered and just wanted to attend the conference. He's actually on tour with Sky Wallace. And so they played some shows in Europe. They wanted to gauge just to see what their mark would be, how people would perceive it. And it worked out that he ended up getting a showcase as well at the Reeperbahn Festival. So just through that, he made some really good contacts with like booking agents, and just to kind of like, I actually sat on some like one-on-one meetings with him, and a lot of his like questions that he was asking was that, like, what's the best way to get like a booking agent in Europe? And it's just something like that we find that people are kind of gauging. Like if you don't have like significant radio play already in Europe, a lot of people are starting to emphasize on like just like booking your own show just at a venue. And then because apparently like booking shows, like especially in Germany, are like actually pretty cheap. So you can start to like just build your own tour that way. So
Marvin, I've got a quick question for you. From someone on the webinar, is Trifecta strictly open to R&B and hip hop artists?
No, but we are at a carrying capacity right now.
That's fair. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Also, you know what? Like I didn't even touch on this like at the very beginning. Let's leave all questions until the very end, because there's a really good chance that we are going to cover it in some capacity. So just make sure to just write down your question, and then we'll have like a really big group discussion at the very end. So yeah, thank you. All right, so we kind of like just chatted about conferences. So like, why don't we chat about showcasing? Because you know, like sometimes everyone applies for a showcase. Sometimes like only 2 or 3 bands get in. Is it kind of like one of those things where it's like, oh, then maybe I shouldn't attend a conference? Like, what's your take on showcasing? And is that worth attending, or is that kind of just like your, you know, is it worth it? Is it worth it to you?
For us, personally, I would say it's worth it, but I would say it's not worth it for everybody. The conference will always be worth it, because technically you're not losing a lot, but I guess more so because we've seen a lot of examples where bands, our friends' bands, have showcased without, I guess, having enough of the time to prep, and it ended up kind of being a waste of money, or they came home really disheartened. So I would say the showcase is always worth it as long as you can do all of the preparatory work. So by that I mean we always make sure to do a lot of research on the delegates that will be at the festival. Reach out to them beforehand, send emails introducing yourself. If possible, try to meet up with them before and try to invite them personally to your showcase. And still after that, be able to talk to them at the showcase and follow up with them after. I guess we need to get rid of this whole myth that if you build it, they will come. And maybe it's happened, but it hasn't really happened to us. we've always had to make sure we prep and we make sure we fill our own room for the showcase. No industry really just comes just because they're wandering around. I guess a lot of these people have to see a billion bands a day almost. They don't really have the most free time in the world. So we've actually had friends that they didn't do a lot of the prep work, and then if they played the show expecting people just to come, and people were there, but no one really followed up with the delegates that were there after, and it didn't really turn into anything. And ultimately, like, yeah, it still always ends up being like a cool experience, and it's still a lot of fun to play. But are you getting the professional benefit that you want to, especially when you spent that much money? If you're going somewhere kind of far away with a shitty exchange rate, then maybe not. I guess this is where we've been really lucky, where this is something you got to ask, I guess, other bands that maybe have gone to another showcase festival. We've been lucky that we've had friends like, you guys know the band Close Talker? So they've done South by maybe like 12 times, not 12, like 5 or 6 times or something. And then I still remember their dude Chris was, when we were booked for South by, I was just trying to find out whatever I could just to find information so we could make the most of it, because the Canadian dollar isn't doing that great. And then Chris said, well, the first time we went, it was a lot of fun, and then we came home and like, man, never come back. And then they got in again, so they went again, and then they came home again. They were like, man, why did we come back? And it wasn't until the 4th time that they really got something out of it, but it took all those mistakes and I guess all that sunk cost in a way to learn what they had to do. So unless you really have the time to prep, then the showcase may not be worth it. The number one thing to not anticipate is don't just assume that playing the show will kind of just spark something. You'll have to do a lot of work before and after the showcase, surrounding the whole event, I guess.
Yeah, thank you for touching on that, because if you're planning on showcasing or attending a conference, like, be ready to work. And if you're looking at like a starting point on just like, where do I even begin? Like, where, like, in my career, like, what do I need to like start doing right now? And the first thing is you got to start looking at like, what do you want? What are your goals? What do you want to, like, you know, you're building up this brand and this awesome like, musical like project, and yeah, just the kind of like the way like where things are going. You really have to just kind of emphasize on like, you know. Sorry, I'm this is weirding me out. That I'm just sorry. So you pretty much have to, like, I just don't want to see myself talk. Okay, you pretty much just have to start looking at what your goals are, and once you have that mapped out, then start looking at like festivals and conferences, and just sort of think about like, is this like, am I ready to kind of start going to meet people in like, you know, like you toured Canada, like I don't know how many times Johnny Two Fingers stuff like toured Canada. So like if you want to like kind of like go out, like just really like just emphasize, just like look at like what you're doing with your own career and like where your goals line up before just submitting in an application to go and showcase. If you are, that's great. Like, you know, like you want to go and showcase, but like also just kind of start mapping out, like if you want to go play Folk Alliance. For the most part, Folk Alliance happens in Kansas City. Next year it's actually going to happen in Montreal, but for the 5 years it was going to happen in Kansas City. You know, then maybe if you're looking at tapping into like, I want to start playing US like folk festivals, that might be something that you want to like be targeting on, because that's part of your goals. Yeah, and like again, like showcasing isn't for everyone. Like be prepared, because and be prepared to work, because if you don't have just like a plan in place and you just want to go up, show up, play your thing, and just expect something to work out, 99% like nothing is really going to come out of it. And you know, it's like you just spent a lot of money to kind of go and play in like a room of like maybe 100 people, and yeah, things don't work out like where somebody like the art of like, you know, artist discovery, where you have like an A&R from a label that will just like go to a showcase like, yes, I'm going to go sign them. I think the last one that I can use as like a reference point would be Post Malone. Post Malone performed at Canadian Music Week a couple years ago, and he was the only artist where they actually requested like a second encore, which he ended up doing an entire like his set, like he did it again. And then it was right after that, 6 months later, he was on an opening slot for tour with Justin Bieber. So so in that sense, like, yeah, like something like worked out for him. But like I want to say for 98% of all bands that are going to be attending a showcase, or sorry, and like performing at a showcase, it's like, it's very rare. Like you got to plan to like be reaching out to people. And if you're kind of unsure, like we are going to touch on like how to reach out to people with this. And so yeah, like we'll definitely kind of like move forward. But you know, it's just like something to kind of keep in mind that, you know, just don't apply just for the sake of applying. Just make sure that you can kind of like have a plan in place. That's it.
Yeah.
Keelan, do you want to just pull up your presentation? You don't have to share your screen with me. You can just put it up there now.
Okay. Oh.
Just so we don't have to watch like double you guys on the wall.
Sure. Just go here.
Oh, you don't have to share it though.
Oh.
You can just open it and.
Wouldn't move for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sweet.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Can't emphasize enough. Real life music is not like Straight Outta Compton or Empire or any of those shows. Or maybe it is, but I haven't seen it. And this is already talking about like the, I guess like seeing your band as a business, like having like a goals, business plan, reaching out to, I guess, potential business partners. And a band is a business, but a band is still also a band too. And there's a lot of other prep things, like we live in 2018, you just got to make sure before you even showcase at all, your website is proper, your social media is as you want it to be. And even showcasing in itself, it's not just like a regular show, like you would play a show to your friends. It's really, really quite different since these are industry people. They're going to be on their phones most of the time, and it's kind of disheartening playing to a whole bunch of dudes on their phones. But that's just kind of the beast you have to get used to also. And these are all, I guess, like other aspects to take into consideration on top of all the business stuff.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's move on to the next slide here. Okay. This is a big one, another loaded question. All right, so how do you get selected to showcase, and what key points can you have in place to help with a successful application? You know, like it really like varies per festival, because sometimes it could be booking bands, like they might say like, you know what, we've noticed on radio there's like 30% more post-rock bands on, like they're hitting like Sirius XM or something like that. So we're going to have 30% more post-rock bands because we see that there's a bit of a trend, and we're going to bring in a bunch of industry that's looking for those type of bands. So that might be something that they'll be like taking into account. Other things is like there's, you know, like taking into account about gender. There's also like, oh geez, like I'm trying to think. Because I feel like every festival, depending on the mandate, like it always just varies. Like nobody goes after like a full structure, but there are a lot of similarities in applications. So what we really wanted to touch on was just the similarities part, because these are things that you can be working on, that you can also work towards as like goals that will be in like your business and like your marketing plan. So one thing I want to emphasize first is that, like, you will see SaskMusic at a lot of these showcases around the world, and it'll have like the BreakOut West branding. But I also want to just like let you know that bands always have to apply through the festival. We actually get no say in the artists that actually get picked by the festival. So so it's always like, it's just out of our hands. The festivals, they know their market and they know the type of delegation that they're going to be bringing. So just something to kind of like just keep in mind, and I just wanted to kind of like talk about it just a little bit. So I guess like in terms of like similarities, and because like the next slide is about export ready, but I'm not going to go there yet because that's also like a pretty loaded question. So first thing I want to like just like chat about with bands is that I really want you to have relevant press. If you were featured in Exclaim in 2009, that's awesome. That's really good. But that was like almost like a decade ago. So so just like something to like, you know, keep in mind, because festivals are looking that, is, you know, as you as an artist, are you active? Are you doing things right now? Are you like making a strong push for it? So, you know, they're looking for bands that are ready to work. There's also like hone your biography. This is something that I think will like eventually be like a future skills lab, but like, you know, if you have trouble and you struggle like writing your own bios, like get somebody who's really awesome, like hire a publicist just to kind of like make something that's a little bit concrete, because you're essentially like you're selling yourself to somebody who like knows nothing about your band. And just treat it like like almost like a grant application. There's like a Reddit forum. It's called like Explain Like I'm Five. And I love that like analogy like tied to like a bio, because your bio has to be short and sweet and concise, but it also has to kind of like talk about like what you're doing in the sense that, you know, like this is what's happening, and you kind of like give hints on like what your goals are. So that's like one thing that I really want to mention. And also, in reality, you might not have a strong case for each field. This is actually something I pulled off the South by Southwest website. So like, you know, one of the things that will be like really common that you'll see is like either career achievements, or they'll ask you like, what do you want to get out of the festival? Like, and those are like two things that, you know, those are like pretty loaded questions, but there might be some things that you're, you know, like say you're just starting out and you're a little bit unsure about like what's gonna like happen. But like if nothing has been like inputted, like that has been done, then maybe kind of start mapping out like what your goals are too. Just as like you know, like what you actually want to get out of the festival. It might work in your favor because they as much information as possible to take into account. That's what you're going to be rating on. YouTube link. I can't stress this enough. A lot of times too is that when you're submitting music for, I guess like for your showcase application, they are gonna like do a quick Google search. They are gonna YouTube you, and if someone has like a shitty like cell phone video of like a performance, and that's what got like the most hits, that's probably like what they're gonna watch, unless you can provide something that is like, you know, it's something that you want to portray. You want them to see that this is how I sound live, to essentially like sell yourself. So in terms of like what I've learned throughout the years of like working in the music industry is that people will want to book a band that they've seen live, because they can like feel that energy, they can see what's happening. So if you have like a really good live video, and this is something that if you have like an album release show, like hire like a proper camera person and get the feed from the soundboard and tie it in together, because this is something that like they are going to take into account if you're like, you know, you're going to fit with the showcase. I bug Marvin all the time because Marvin climbs everything on stage, but I think that's brilliant, because I've been able to like to tell people about like, you got to check out this band because it's like, it's an R&B group with the same energy as a hardcore group, and people are like, oh, okay, well, like I'll check that out, like, because, you know, like when you're singing nice melodies but you're also like climbing 16-foot speakers, like that's, I don't know, that's kind of cool to see. So the next thing I want to kind of like point on is that, and this is, you know, this is kind of like to emphasize on just like being aware of how the times are changing. Like 5 years ago, streaming, like who would have thought that streaming would have taken off to where it is right now? Like it's definitely this goes like way past 5 years, but I feel like in the past 5 years, there's definitely been a strong push, and just everything has just been switched over. Like, for example, like when I was just in Germany and I was doing these meetings at the Canadian Embassy, just to learn about the German market and how they're, you know, like how people are pushing music out there and how people are accessing music. Germany is the third largest music market in the world. And I think it was just this past year that streaming just surpassed iTunes sales. And I think they were like one of like the last countries, maybe like Poland's on like a different level, but super awesome. But they might still be like pushing with iTunes, but it's just something to like think about. And actually South by Southwest, they actually just touched on this, that getting added to a curated Spotify playlist is the exact same as getting like a reputable mention in like a huge blog like Rolling Stone, or say like Exclaim or something. So just something to kind of keep in mind, because if you do line something that up, like Beachbody, like for example, you just got on this like insane playlist on Spotify. Is there something like 700,000 like monthly listeners, or yeah, it's something like absolutely insane, but that like works as like a feature in like Billboard. Like that's like up to the same equivalent. Like that makes a really awesome talking point and something that you would include in your application. So just to kind of like going over like the similarities, you know, like another thing too is that this kind of also goes back to having your realistic business and marketing plan, because if you are including career achievements, like start just kind of like mapping out on like what type of things need to be in place to kind of like, you know, be on somebody's radar, because there is tons of crossover. you have anything to add?
Yeah, usually when you make your, I guess, like CV for a band, it's actually a pretty good practice because sometimes it can get kind of disheartening. Feel like you're running on a treadmill, but when you really put it into a CV, like a resume, you actually see how much cool stuff you've done, how many blogs have maybe blogged about you, did you get press, have you been on a playlist. And this is a document that once you make it, you can just update it, and it's not that much work to update. And you can always take stuff from it, and it just makes the whole application process way quicker when you cut and paste for things like South by Southwest. I guess there's also, like when you guys got on that playlist, did you guys just submit through Spotify Canada, like their whatever link thing now? No, it was just like them.
Yeah, I think you were just randomly selected. Yeah.
Okay, see, that's really lucky.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
never happened to us. But yeah, when you think about it, when you think about the day that we're in, not a lot of kids read anymore, but they still stream music. So technically, it makes sense why that is equivalent to getting like a, I don't know, like a feature on billboards before. And like after this, we'll have like some master document. I can post a link that there's a link now that Spotify makes. Before you needed to email them and stuff, but now they just have a link that you just like upload you tell them your release date and like stuff that you have planned, and then their editorial team actually thinks about it, and then maybe they put in the playlist. Maybe they don't, but at least it's like a maybe. I guess the other part, other than the obvious, like make sure your website and your socials are all proper and how you like them to be presented. At least like I'm not really like a big industry or booker person, but I know from my own experience booking art festival and even just shows in Saskatchewan, I've always, number one, only really want to book a band that I've seen live, because then you know what you're going to get, especially in hip hop when everyone just uses auto-tune and half of them can't rap either. And if you can't play in front of the booker, at least the best thing you can spend money on, I swear, is like a good quality live show video with decent sound recording plugged into the board. And still the best tips that I think I've heard is my friend Cal, who used to book for birthdays, like a venue in London. He still always tells these stories of, this is like a pretty good venue to be booked at in London. And the bands that he books, or even just considers booking, usually tries a really creative approach at, I guess, contacting him. He always tells one story about some band mailed him a box, and he didn't know what to do with the box, and later on they mailed him a key, and then he like used the key to open the box with their mixtape in it. And at the very least, because you gotta think like these people have to go through like how many submissions all the time. I mean, like I just booked like a little thing in Saskatchewan, I already have so many things to go through. But then immediately, of course, he's gonna think of like, oh man, you're the band with the box. And and then even in our case too, I guess for like our acts, for trifecta acts, usually that if you can add that human element, that you can show you're not just creative in making a song, but you're creative in the way you interact with people, that's always a huge plus. Like I know Jess, like Lo, she got booked for that Focus Wales Festival in the UK, just because immediately he liked the whole layout of the trifecta USB. He liked how we each had like a different kind of sound, and he liked the fact that I guess we all met him also, so he knows like we're real people. And there was somebody else we got, like my band got booked for Tallinn Music Week in Estonia, and that was like another like personal thing. I'm pretty sure I emailed him randomly to see if he wanted to go water sliding at the West End or something. And then he ended up, he didn't come, but he ended up coming to our show later on, and then he saw us live, and then we got booked for that. So these kind of, I don't know, just trying to think a little bit more laterally, because think of on the other side, if you had to go through 500 of these applications, how bored would you be?
And how quick do you actually review an application? Like it's almost like within like a minute, like, you know, there has to be something there that will be like, yeah, I'll consider this. But for yourself, I have a question for you. So, so when you first started applying for showcase applications, were you getting immediately like booked to showcase, or was that something that like you had to kind of get some personal goals done first to kind of like meet certain criteria in the showcase application that would have gotten you like booked for like Tallinn Music Week or like the Great Escape Festival in the UK? Is Do you think there's been like any type of changes that if you like apply for something, got denied, so you're like, okay, maybe I need to like focus on some of like our own goals to boost this up, so that maybe we'll try again for next year, just to show that we're active and we're serious about what we do?
Yeah, I guess there's also kind of the myth that maybe comes from watching movies like Straight Outta Compton, that you need to save everything until the perfect moment, when there really is no perfect moment ever. You should just apply just so they get to know. People like to see the progression, I guess, believe it or not. I think. I could be wrong. But at least I know the first showcase festival we started applying to was Canadian Music Week, because it's like an easy one. It's on Sonic, but it's super accessible. It's in Toronto. It's every genre. And then at first we didn't get in. Then another time I think we didn't get in. And then we got in. But at that point, we couldn't really focus on quality, because I don't even think our music was that good. At that point, we couldn't really focus on good press because our music was so bad we couldn't get any press. So instead, we just kept trying to get better, at least. So that meant like better live videos, better music videos, keep releasing albums. And eventually, when you can't win with quality, I guess you win with quantity. But then with quantity, it's like a rep at the gym, right? You eventually get quality out of quantity. And then that's what I felt really, I guess, like built us up to that point. And then after that, then we got booked for Reeperbahn. And at that point, we started getting a little bit more quality, getting a little bit of press. And then we just added on layer by layer, I guess. At that time, we knew our weak point was press. So then we just really, really focused on press. At anything, we tried to meet writers. What else did we do? I guess we talked to a lot of our friends' bands that got written about in, say, things like Exclaim or The Beatroot or something. And some of them more often than not would have like a relationship with a writer or something. Maybe it was like a writer that was in the same place that they grew up in and then eventually moved away. So just stuff like that. I guess now the paradigm's kind of with Spotify and playlisting, so that's like a more difficult one. But I guess also another thing to keep in mind is you never know what are the needs of these festivals at certain times. Sometimes they need more female acts. Sometimes they need more acts of people of color. Sometimes they just need more indie bands. So even if you get rejected, I guess don't worry too much about it. Just keep doing what you love doing, which is making music. Because I swear we've gotten rejected more than any band ever. And still at the end of the day, the rejection, it might not have even been your fault. You could have been actually like a really strong application. It just so happened they needed another indie band. I don't know. Do you think that's all valid? Maybe?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have another question for you. When you said that, when you kind of figured out like I need press to boost up my showcase applications, what was the thing that kind of triggered that? Like, was it like you chatted with someone from the festival and was like, yeah, like we thought the music was great, but there just needs to be something more to like to validate, to back that up? Like
that really helps too. If you can, and sometimes like, you know, these people are really busy, but if you can, just send an email to the festival you're applying to. They usually have like an info at whatever the festival name is. Hey, like, thanks for considering our application. Always be like nice about it. They probably get like tons of bitter bands emailing them all the time, but then just ask like, what did you want to see more maybe of? And then sometimes it's press, sometimes honestly you just don't have like a live video, so it probably means like get a live video, but always ask for feedback for sure.
Okay, and this is one of the other things that that's actually going to lead into my next point, which is another loaded question. But you know, like, have your music up on everything, like literally everything. Like register with CD Baby or I guess like TuneCore. There's DistroKid, and just make sure that you are easily accessible online, because this is actually going to become a factor into your application, as well as like delegates discovering your band. This is one of those things that I know like to each their own, and some artists like, you know what, like I only want to focus on Bandcamp. We're actually like make money, which is totally fine. But I would also say spend that extra $50 and just make sure that you do have a presence on Spotify. Like I can just quickly type and just make sure you're in. I say that because Spotify doesn't rule all within the world. What I found out is that in Europe, everybody uses Deezer. I don't know if anybody ever used Deezer in Canada when Rdio kind of got like washed away, and then it was like Deezer before Spotify was integrated, and I was like, Not a fan. But then like things started to happen, and then they started like to boost up some things. So just make sure that like your music is accessible, because you are going to be put onto a playlist of all the acts that are performing at a showcase. And I know that industry and just like fans, like people go through this list and they start mapping out who they want to see. So just kind of keep that in mind. So now the loaded question. What does it mean to be export ready? Like, I don't know, you tell me. Like, I'm just kidding. Okay, so this is one of those questions that like you see it everywhere, but without like a lot of times there isn't enough information to kind of like back up like the statement of export. You see it on like grant funding like applications, you see it and like for festival requirements, you see people like on panels just talk about export ready, but they kind of like they don't really like go into like the nitty gritty details, because the music industry is always evolving. The terms on like what counts towards being export ready like does change, because you know like as CD sales are dwindling and like Spotify streams are like starting to boost up, like that might help you get up to maybe like a certain tier for like factory application by any chance. You got your 3 tiers, and like depending on like how many funds that you can start accessing. So just to kind of like keep that in mind. So this is something that I want to like touch on, because there are a lot of similarities like throughout. I want to say like for festival applications. I even kind of pulled a bunch of stuff. So when we have our Very Prairie conference that's going to be coming up, and there's like a submission form to like our like one showcase that we're doing. So I just kind of like pulled just a few things from there, because there are a lot of similarities that other applications will be looking for, but it just might be worded differently. So as I'm going through this, if it's not under your marketing plan or your goals, like I would kind of start like just thinking about hitting these marks, because it might boost your chance for getting into like an international like festival. So first thing is, like you got export ready, and it could also mean like career achievements. Marvin, I see that you have like a bit of a point on this like section right here, if you want to like tap into that.
Oh,
about the band CV.
Oh, yeah. Kind of like I was saying before about the CV and the resume. I guess what kind of goes along with that, I still do believe making the CV is a good practice in and of itself, but also something that's more so like an investment, a time investment for the future at least, is making your goals very clear, as well as a marketing plan, how to achieve those goals as well. So say if you're a more urban act or electronic, your world is going to be more in the streaming world now. So I guess if you listen to a lot of playlists, try to identify those playlists, identify how you'll get songs on those playlists, and put that into your goals. And then in your marketing plan, and your marketing plan can be a billion things. It could be reaching out to Spotify, identifying influencer Spotify playlists, or getting more things on press, or even just having listening parties or listening shows. But at least once you have this plan, it kind of builds more of a structure as to what you can follow. And also this saves you a lot of time later on when you're applying for grants, because they can just cut and paste things. You can just update it gradually instead of making a new one every single time. And this is usually, especially from the goals section, in most festival applications, they'll say, what do you want? Or something like, what do you want to get out of this festival? And usually they're looking for something pretty specific, I think. Like we want to find a booking agent or publishing representation. So if you have these already laid out in your goals, you can usually just cut and paste it and maybe, I guess, tailor it a little bit for the festival. It just ends up saving you a lot more time in the long run if you just invest if you invest initial time in the CV, the goals, and the marketing plan, and just understand what your band wants as well, I think.
Yeah, that's so important. Like don't just like write in this like little like, they call them fields, but like don't like write in, be like, we just want to attend because it will be awesome, we want to make new fans. Like that's like, then just go tour there. Like don't like worry about like showcasing, just like start like tapping into that market and just continuously playing. Like just really like, we can't emphasize this enough. Like this is actually like a trend in our presentation for tonight, is that because we really want to emphasize like create those goals, create that marketing plan, add structure to actually what you want to do. Because like if you're just throwing stuff at a wall and you just want to see what sticks, like you like not only like that can work, but that can also like waste a bunch of your money. But also like when something starts working out and you want to attend like a festival for whatever reason, if you want to go meet like certain booking agents, then you also have to start planning like a follow-up. But like these are things that like people that will be like reviewing an application, like they will be kind of like focusing on and they will be looking at. So to kind of like just go back just a little bit where I was talking about just like our SaskMusic, our very Prairie, our showcase that we're going to be doing. So I'm just going to read out just some of like the criteria, and like this is something that if you have questions about, like we'll just save it till the end. But I can like touch on like anything on just like to give examples or just anything. So I guess like the first thing is like you have to have a commercial release in Canada in the past 24 months or plans for a commercial release in the next 6 months. The next one would be at least one commercial release that is distributed internationally. So that's where like CD Baby and like DistroKid, like getting your music up like as a digital distributor around the world, like that's where that comes into play. Completed at least one Canadian tour in the past 24 months or have confirmed bookings in the target location. So yeah, this is all things that will kind of like benefit the group, but also just to kind of like sidetrack just a little bit, there still is 2 areas that you are making money within the industry. That's through publishing and that's through touring income. So just keep that in mind. An established team, including at least 2 of the following. So that can be an artist manager, record label, a booking agent, a publicist, just to kind of like keep in mind on like, like Saskatchewan is a very DIY friendly place. Like, we have heart, we have community, but we don't have a lot of music industry. And so, like this is kind of like, when you start thinking about touring, like if you're going to go play shows out in Toronto, then, it's like we need more articles about us. Cool. Start researching which publicists are in Toronto and invite them out to your show. Like put them on the guest list, buy them a beer, anything, even like grab a coffee with them. So like just don't feel like you're pigeonholed because of like the geographic location. That's like just what I'm getting at. The next thing is like airplay on a published radio chart in the past 24 months. That can also like work towards as like college radio is a big one. College radio across Canada, there's like 46 stations that's been really awesome to Saskatchewan artists, and like people have been gaining some like really good successes from there. There's also public and industry recognition, so that counts towards video plays, streams, music press, blogs, awards, anything that works as a talking point for your. There's also like a minimum of 1,000 combined units sold of any recordings released or combined songs, 5 million. And then the very end is a marketing plan. And as I'm like reading out these, like within our showcase application, like you don't have to hit every single one. I'm going to say, yeah, you should. Like this is something to be really working up towards. But for our own personal showcase application, you just have to hit 4 of those. Anything to add to that?
This is just funny whenever I see this, because I click off the boxes now, but when we started touring internationally, we had like none of these. I think the only thing, I don't know, some of these are almost like more attainable, and it depends on your genre too. Like you could, I don't know, if you're like a mumble rapper or something, you might be able to get like 1.5 million streams. That's pretty good. It really depends. But some of these things, like one, I think that's super attainable for everybody, because that is super DIY now. You literally just make a nicely done mixtape, put it in an envelope, write a nice note, and mail it to radio stations. The distributed internationally, like that, would that just count as like, I don't know, submitting something on TuneIn?
Yeah, pretty much. Like
yeah. It's just some of the ones like minimum of 1,000 combined units. Like hip hop fans don't buy anything, so some of these ones are gonna be really rough.
Yeah, totally. And like, because the definition of export ready, like it isn't something that's absolutely concrete, but there are a lot of similarities with it. And that's like what we want to stress, because you're going to see export ready everywhere. And the more you go to conferences, you're going to hear people talk about, you got to be export ready to be able to like do things. But it's like, but what does that actually mean? So just have your ear to the ground on the certain trends that are like producing and like happening within the music industry, because this criteria, I guarantee, probably like a quarter of this will change to next year, to whatever sort of like industry trends that are happening. If that means that like CD sales are completely like out the window, you know, like what's next? What's next for social media? You know, like what is going to be like the next big thing that artists really gain to like maximize? Is it like holograms? I don't know, got to have a hologram to like, I don't know. Like it can be literally anything, but I just don't want you to see the word export ready and just feel defeated. At any point, give our office a call. If you ever want to chat about this stuff and you just want to say like, hey, like these are the things that I have in place. Do you think it would like reach these like certain guidelines? I'm looking at applying to these festivals, or I don't know, in some capacity, like we would just love to like just chat with you like about what your goals are, your marketing plan, and if there's any way that we can help out just in terms of guidance. So
I swear this is definitely something to ask like your friends' bands too, because you got to play to your strengths as well. Like if you're a hardcore band and there's really, really good, like I guess hardcore infrastructure in Canada, you probably want to play towards touring, just because you can set up a tour a lot easier than like a rap group. Except then if you're an electronic act or something, I have a lot of friends that are technically SoundCloud famous, tons of streams, but have just never toured at all. So it really depends on your strengths as well. And this, I mean, you'll see it once you make the CV too. And usually when you cut and paste these things in a festival application, it kind of shows the person that you've done your research about the festival as well. Like say, I don't know, for Estonia, we knew that there was a whole bunch of Japanese delegation that was going to be there, and we really want to get into the Japanese market. So then in your goals, if you've already written out somewhere else, you can say, oh, I really want to go to your festival because I know you guys invite a whole bunch of Japanese delegation. Like, oh, you've done your research. So just something like that. Even like South by Southwest, that's like an easy one. Like everyone reads about South by Southwest, like, oh, we know we can capitalize on the fact that a lot of genres aren't really covered in other festivals, but every genre is covered in some way. Something like that.
Yeah, other like press or just like hearing about people getting stuck at the border, I guess, like
yeah,
for South by. So, okay, that I'm so glad you mentioned research, because that's gonna kind of bring us to our next point here. So, like how to maximize your showcase and attend a conference. That's what you read up there, but I actually have it written down as day in the life of Marvin. So, so pretty much like Marvin, I'm just gonna ask you a couple questions, and you know, like, we're just gonna kind of like just talk about like your thought process just from like the very beginning, you know, like when you received that first application that you've been accepted to showcase at a festival, you know, what you're gonna, like what your plans are during, and then like what you're gonna do at the very end. So, so you applied and received an acceptance letter to showcase at a festival. Like now what? Like what's the very first thing that goes through your mind?
How cheap flights are going to be, or not cheap flights are going to be. I should preface first, this is something that we've really, I guess, come to realize now, is this isn't so much like like when you take a programming class or like a chemistry class, there is no like right answer for this kind of stuff. At least like now that we, I guess, like showcase and tour together, us and a lot of our Trifecta artists, we'll actually give, I guess, our own little workshops about how to conference properly. But I only say properly because I'm just gonna tell you the stories that I guess have worked for us. And I should preface that I'm like a numbers person. I think in like numbers. I don't really think in English. I'm a programmer by trade. So I rely on data and research and reading. And that's only because that's my personality. A lot of this stuff, if you're really good with people, which I'm not, that's probably the strength that you should play off of. This is a very non-linear approach, the way you approach, like, I don't know, networking or connecting with delegates or music in general, I guess. So just to preface, whatever I say doesn't mean it's going to work for you. It's got to be something that you discover on your own that's based off your own personality. So for me, anytime I get an invitation, depending on like how much time is left before we actually have to go. But one thing I definitely do is I sign up for basically every kind of seat sale thing imaginable, just because we have a band of 5 people, plus we usually bring a camera guy and maybe someone just to like help carry things. And then usually we've never really seen flights get cheaper. So the first thing is just to take care of the first big cost, which is flights and the Airbnbs or whatever accommodations that you want to use. And that's also keeping into consideration, say South by, there's like, I don't know, 500,000 people in downtown Austin for like a week. I think it's $2,000 American for one night in like a decent hotel. So that, it kind of outweighs, say, we will usually pick an Airbnb that's a bit farther away, but we have to think of, like, I don't know, transportation costs, so the Ubers in and out of the city. Will that end up costing more? Or there's always been times that if the transportation is actually pretty expensive, we'll actually just pay a little bit more to be by the festival, as opposed to spending a lot more on transportation. I guess the key thing that when you consider these prices is the flights, depending on your, I guess you obviously got to get time off work first, but at least for us, we've always tried to be there, even if we're not showcasing yet. We may be showcasing on the third day, but we usually try to be there the entire time, because you never know what happens. There's just been times that we've been flexible and available, and then we just meet a band or meet somebody, and then they end up giving us an extra show or an extra showcase. And that was the thing that led to something else, not the actual showcase for some reason. And then in cases where it's really important that you keep your home base either close or super accessible to the conference area, because there's nothing worse than not being able to capitalize on like a quick opportunity, like maybe a writer really did like you or figure out that you're there, and then only had half an hour, and then most of the delegation is at the conference hotel. You're going to want to be close to where all the action's happening, I guess. And then I guess after that, I know this stuff is really boring. This is just like the logistical things. So we'll get to like the actual band prep later. Then after that is just see how are you not going to pay for this all by yourself. So we look at the three big funding ones are, at least for us, like Creative Sask and Factor Canada and SOCAN Foundation. Factor Canada, they have a whole bunch of different, I guess, criteria that you need to pass. So these things, I guess you should kind of look beforehand. Like I think you need to register your artist and your applicant, whatever, a month before or something. And I think, except you can submit your thing a day in advance. Creative Sask, you submit your thing 2 weeks in advance. SOCAN is always changing, so I don't know. But these things you should always like read right away, I guess, because the longer you wait, it'll just cost you more money. And we're not really a band that has a lot of money, and I'm assuming you guys are in the same boat too. Okay, so that's all the logistical stuff. Now for the prep before the show. We haven't even gone to prepping your band yet. The prep for the show is usually, at least depending on how much time you have, look at the festival site and see what delegation is going to be there. Do your research and don't try to do an exhaustive search on like, I guess this is where quality over quantity comes into play. That what's a good example? I don't know. If you're like kind of like a heavier band, like a heavier, more melodic band, Dine Alone probably makes a lot of sense for you as a label. So if they have somebody from there that's going to show up at the festival, you probably want to see who's going to be there. Just do a quick Google search on their name and just try to get as much information as you can. At least this is what I do. It seems kind of creepy but I'm also research based too. If you're a really good car salesman and you can just memorize their face and go and talk to them and it's fine, then totally do that. But to me, the more information you have, at least you're not walking in blind and then you're not having an awkward conversation, like cold calling somebody. So this is just information gathering on the people. It's also good to plan out your day as well. Usually these festivals have an app and they're pretty useful in organizing, say, not just what people you want to meet, but also what sessions you want to go to. And what we've done and what our whole team usually does is it's kind of awkward if you just go up to somebody and introduce yourself, at least for us. So we'll usually schedule in, I guess, seminars where that target delegate is going to be talking. And the number one thing is don't be on your phone the whole time, just like in school. Pay attention because they are paying attention to see who, I mean, they're talking about something they care about, right? Wouldn't you want someone to listen to you if you're talking about something you care about? And then usually after is the best time, and one of the best times once the storm is gone, to see like, hey, I'm really a big fan of what you do. I love Dine Alone. I've been listening to Alexa on Fire since like high school. So we actually have a show coming up at this festival. If you guys have time, feel free to come. And this is where prepping a hand flyer has been our #1 weapon of choice every single time. And this means like a physical hand flyer, well designed. Like if you can't design something on your own, pay a designer and have all your information on your socials, your website, your showcase time, just because it gets rid of two problems. There's like human error for one. You might forget your information, they might forget your information. It's way easier when you can just give them a thing that they can carry around. And more often than not, they're like, oh, I totally forgot about you. I only came because I found your flyer in my bag. And the other thing is, if you're really awkward, like our band, like I always joke, like we're welcome to the band of introverts. You're not really good at introducing yourself to people. So if someone asks like, oh, what do you do? What are you doing here? You can just like ask for permission. Hey, is it cool if I give you a flyer? You just explain your flyer, and then it pretty much solves its own problem.
And make sure you have your contact information on that flyer too. Just like, you know, there might be a chance that they have something else going on, or they just missed your showcase, or they show up and like maybe you start playing like a little bit earlier. So times can be like just thrown off just a little bit, but just always make sure that your contact information is on there just in case, because you never know.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like we always like to say, better safe than dead. Like I mean, this is music, right? It's not like we're in the military. Nobody's dying. Nothing bad is really happening. But then once we do the initial research and make our schedule, we'll always try to send out these preliminary emails first. And then later on, we can like get into examples too. But usually just like a nice introduction. You probably, I don't know, say something about like you like what they do, and then invite them to your show. You give all your information there, and then so that's the first time they see it. Then when they meet you in person, the second time they see it is when you tell them about it. Third time they see it is when you give them the flyer. And then hopefully the fourth time they see it is when they actually come to the show. And then so they remember you. The fifth time is when you talk to them at the show. And then the sixth time is when you follow up in an email afterwards. So after that many times, either they're really annoyed or they didn't forget you if they really liked you.
So sometimes like you go and attend a conference and there's like 200 delegates like just listed just down there. How do you pick which ones to target? Like, because you're obviously like you're not gonna like send like just a generic email to all of them. Hey, blah blah blah, come to my show, because like somebody will see that and they'll instantly they'll treat it as spam because like you didn't put the thought process into like find like why you actually want to be reaching out to this person, because like at the same time like this person needs to like line up with what the band's goals are. But like how do you determine on out of like 200 delegates, how do you pick 10 really good ones that you want to focus on, that you want to you want them out to either like meet or to come see you perform?
I guess our criteria usually is first is just see if they would be, if they're a fit for your band, if they're a fit for your brand, and I guess you guys have the same kind of value system. Have they maybe worked with bands that you really liked as well? And then after that, see how attainable they are. I guess like be realistic. I mean, there are cases that you can reach out to someone maybe way bigger than you, but I don't know. We've always had a lot more luck when we reach out to somebody from a little bit smaller of a press, like a Vice or Noisy or something. They're still not small, but at least they're kind of attainable. But when you reach out to someone like Pitchfork, is that going to happen this time? I don't really know. And then when you make the email, number one thing is, never like blind CC blast an email, because that's just spam. And these people aren't dumb. They get a whole bunch of these emails all the time. Like try to be personable about it. One thing you can always do, I guess like Twitter is actually pretty good for this, is if they're usually a Twitter person and then you can see what they tweet. There's been times like who was it? I think it's the CBC lady, Jeanette. I don't know, but in her bio, she has something about like being a very enthusiastic vegan biker or something. And then usually if you just insert that in an email, they're like, oh, this person actually like did research. Or a good one is that if they're a writer, they're a radio show host, just listen to an episode or read one of their articles. Like, oh, I really like your writing. I really like your radio show. Whatever, I guess whatever point that kind of resembles making friends in real life, right? Like at the end of the day, this has actually happened to us. One of our DJs, who we're never bringing on tour again, introduced himself to somebody. Hi, my name is blank. I have X number of streams on SoundCloud and X number of streams on Spotify. I'm just like, man, you don't make friends that way. Like, when was the last time you made a friend with someone that said, hi, I'm Marvin, I'm a doctor, I make 200 grand a year. Like that never works. It's like, oh, you have a Kira shirt? I really like anime. It's gotta be something that's not on the number side. Just treat it like making friends, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then, like, if you're doing like a Google search, because you referenced Twitter, like, what about like, do you go and check a delegate's like their LinkedIn profile? Do you kind of like, if they're a festival booker, do you just go and you just see what type of bands they're booking? Bonus points if they've already been booking like a Saskatchewan artist, then that kind of like breaks the ice because it does work as like a really awesome reference point. But is there anything else besides Twitter? Like obviously like I think Samurai Champs are really like heavy on Instagram. Do you kind of source out other industry through Instagram and start following them and liking their posts, send some DMs like?
Yeah, it's since the online world is so vast now, everybody's personality has to do with, I guess, a online social personality now too. So I know it's pretty annoying. I don't really like social media either, but you've got to use all of it. Because say for, at least in our case, we've really noticed the writers that we really like are really active on Twitter. And then if they tweeted about something about hating Trump, it's like, oh, I hate Trump too.
Nice collective like across the board. Well, but yeah.
Yeah. And then Instagram, usually if they're like a more visual person, I've really seen this especially with like photographers or something, or most people are photographers on the side. Just follow their Instagram and be like, hey, that was a really cool picture of a cactus. My mom is a cactus, or something like that. If they're more of like a professional industry person, I don't even know what that means. Then you could check out their LinkedIn, and they probably work with some band on Dine Alone that you probably listened to in grade 11. And then that's always a point. You just gotta use all the resources you can. But just know everybody's personality is really different based on what they use as well. And sometimes that also includes, I guess, things like the easiest one is bands that they've worked with. Usually in bios or maybe in write-ups, they'll say, oh, this person has worked with names X, X, and X. If you're a fan of one of them, you could say that. Or it's even better if, oh, you work with this band. I'm really good friends with their drummer, or their drummer used to play for me in high school or something. As long as there's some kind of connection point to show that you're a human, like you're trying to make friends, you're not a robot. There's enough robots online, I guess. See, this is what I mean by this is a really, really non-linear process. You have to find what works with your personality as well. Like, at least just for me, I do all the data collection I can on all the social media, everything, just to see what will work. But I know we have like a lot of friends that are really, really good at creeping on Instagram. All they need is Instagram. They can find like who someone's ex-wife's dog is on Instagram. If that's what you're good at, just capitalize on that strength, I guess.
But also be careful how you bring that up. But okay, so what about like when you're just like you at a conference and you get there, it's the first day, like what's going through your mind? Like what do? Do you start mapping out the people that you want to meet? Do you kind of like hit up that networking mixer first? Do you start reviewing the conference app? Like what like in the world of Samurai Champs, what's the very first thing you do? After sleep.
After sleep. This is super based on your personality too. Like if you're someone that can survive off sleep, then probably the best thing is to just book yourself an RSVP to everything, because you never know what is going to happen. Like so many of these things just happen serendipitously. If you know you're someone that needs to function on sleep, then it's probably best to budget your time and just like take that hit, go to bed early so you can have like a fresh start the next day. The festival app, I can't emphasize enough. If the festival has an app, use the app just because it takes care of all your scheduling for you. And it's not to say that the schedule will be your concrete plan for the week. It's more so just like a guideline, just because so many of these occurrences are really serendipitous. But just in case, you can always reassess. Like say you look at your schedule, oh, there's this mixer, then, oh, okay, as a band, we always do this thing like feelings check and energy check, because then we see like, oh, is everybody's energy okay? Half the band wants to go to bed, we'll probably just go to bed. If half the band is anxious, well, we're not going to be able to make friends when we're looking like awkward dudes anyway, so we might as well just go to bed. But then if your energy's good and your feelings are good, then maybe we can check out this mixer. Who knows? Maybe we'll see that Dynamo guy. Maybe.
Yeah, like show up for stuff. Like be a face. because like people are going to see like lots of like repetition. Like the more like conferences that you go to, you're actually going to start recognizing a lot of the same industry that's going to be attending these things, and you can be like, you know, you might not have chatted with somebody like right then and there, but you can be like, oh hey, like I saw you at M for Montreal, or I saw you like walking down the street in Toronto, like, which is kind of creepy, but like there's like it does bring up something that you can like actually just like break the ice and just talk about. A lot of times too is that like when you go and like approach somebody, sometimes people like you really have to like read body language, and you just have to really like pay attention to that, because sometimes like people want to talk about music, sometimes people don't want to talk about music, and they don't want to talk about conferences, they don't want to talk about like their label and the fact that they work with like Keith Urban or something like that, because maybe like that brings into like the work world a little bit, and maybe they use conferences as like just almost like a getaway, in a sense, like they're there to like focus on like really cool like new bands that they want to go and see, like either for business or as like a music fan. So so you really want to just like kind of like emphasize, like if you see somebody and they're kind of like looking away and they're not really like into it, just at some point just really like just ask for a business card, even if it's like a 30-second like conversation, because you can always follow up later. But just keep that in mind. If someone like, you know, like we're all, like, congrats, we're all human, you know, like it, like, and this can happen to yourself too. Like if you're starting to feel like anxious or awkward about things, like you know, like, or you start to notice this person starting to feel just like a little bit weird, like then just kind of like take a step back and just make plans to meet up later on. So just something to kind of keep in mind. But what about like, you know, like, so you're attending this conference, you go and do your showcase, you go and do like, say you register for like one-on-one meetings. What about like, what do you do after? Like what happens after a conference ends?
After the conference ends and after you're done your showcase, if there was someone that you did connect with, you have to follow up. You have to, otherwise they'll just forget, and usually it's your job to reach out. And again, this kind of fits in with the whole personality thing too. Some people are really responsive on email, but some people have an inbox of like a bazillion. So sometimes it's actually best, especially what we've noticed like with the younger industry, sometimes it's best just to like send them a DM on Instagram, but you gotta follow up. It really should just be treated like you're making friends. Like it's like, oh, I had like a sweet time, to hang out, or like maybe you'll see them again. And this kind of goes back to the whole, I guess, repeated exposures thing. And you can read a lot of like psychology papers about this too, that it takes like a brain, like 7 point something exposures to the same thing for you to really like register it. And that includes things like your band name. So maybe they really liked your set, and maybe they really liked you as a person, but maybe they just don't remember your name and they don't remember your band name. That's the best time to follow up. Otherwise, nothing will come of all that prep and all the work that you did already. I guess there's also, say, there is a large human aspect of it too. So if you do think about it when you just, I guess, meet somebody new, just try to feel, I guess, okay, this is so wavy, but I guess like try to feel the vibe of the person. You could be really excited to meet somebody, and then you just figure out they're like a dick. And don't try to force it. Like I remember meeting like the one, I don't know, he's like the one dude, he did some SoundCloud thing, and we're a hip hop band, so SoundCloud's like a big deal, right? And the vibe was just not good. He obviously did not want to be there. He was just like there representing his company and just giving nobody the time of day. So if the vibe's not there, don't force it. You know, it'll probably just make you more anxious in the long run. So just like get out of there. But then on the flip side, there's also, if something's really good, don't be afraid to ask them to hang out, because they probably want to hang out too. Like there's been so many cases that, especially in like BreakOut West coming up, if you're driving there, like if you're touring there in a van, like a vehicle, and then somebody isn't from Canada and probably has never seen like the beauty that Canada has to offer, you can always just say like, hey, do you want to go check out a mountain or something? Like that was definitely one thing. One of the writers from the line of Best Fit, like they're like a blog in the UK. They came during BreakOut West here, and the first thing he asked was, do you have a car? Like, yeah, I drive a CRV. And then like, well, could we go for a drive or something? And I'm like, oh man, this editor is gonna kill me. But really, he just wanted to see what what we take for granted every day, like the big expanse horizon, because to people in the UK, that's kind of exotic, right? And the vibe was there, the vibe was good. So if the vibe's there, then just keep going with it, I guess.
And then afterwards, like that gives you like a really awesome talking point for your follow-up, because like follow-up is so important, because like you can go and you can attend conference, you can meet 100 people, but if you don't follow up with them, like you're gonna kind of start to like lose that contact, that like perception. Bring a pen with you, write down like what you talked about, write down like maybe even like what they're wearing. If there's something that you connected with, like write that down, because I guarantee the more people that you meet, you might forget, like when you are doing your follow-up, just, you know, they might forget because they've just met hundreds and hundreds of people that, you know, like there's this one person that they really hit it off with, and they want to get to know them more, but they just need like just simple reminders, and it goes such a long way. I guess like with follow-up, like, you know, like, and as we're kind of like talking about like chatting with people and like introducing yourselves like for the very first time, because like, you know, it's not easy, and I'm so glad that you talked about this, because like this is what worked for you, but also like how many times did you have to kind of like put yourself out there until you knew like what started to work with you, like for you. Mm-hmm. And was anybody at, I guess, like BreakOut West in Regina, and there was like a seminar, okay, one, okay, and there was like two, there's a seminar with Brett Kissel. Did anybody like attend that at all by any chance? It was like Brett Kissel and Louis O'Reilly, and they just wanted to like talk about like conferences and what that like meant to them. And like Brett Kissel started like, you know, I look up to the guy, because I've never seen anybody like do this as well as him, and that's where he will like walk into a room and he'll just like start pinpointing. He'll know this person and they like have 3 dogs, and he'll know like this person and they just got married, and then he'll know like this person. And what really like caught my eye, and like what he was like emphasizing on, was that he's mentioned, like, I thought he had like the greatest memory in the world, and he said he doesn't. And he said like he has such a tough time like paying attention, and just like he has a tough time remembering names. And he said that as he started to like put himself out there and to start meeting up with like industry and delegates, he went through the entire delegate list, and he would like find little key points. If they work on like a specific festival, you know, like doing a Google search, just figuring out like maybe like there's like a bunch of like photos of them with dogs or something like that. And he would literally make like just little notes, and his manager, or sometimes just even like on his own, he would make these like cue cards and just kind of start like going through them, and it would be like, but there would be no names tied to them, but he'd be like, this person does this, and then like next person, and it was just that repetition, like, which sounds like super hardcore, but also like look where Brett Kissel's at today. And you know, like a lot of times too, like music and like, you know, getting like booked or getting signed for your music, that's one thing, but this is a business of personal relationships too. And I really feel that Brett Kissel got himself up to like a substantial level because of the wonderful connections he made, because he went in and he focused on making friends first, and then the business came after. So just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying like, hey, start reviewing everybody, like, you know, that like game Guess Who, like, I'm not saying that, like, don't do that, but yeah, just kind of like, just, you know, it doesn't hurt to like be researching people and what they do. Also, people move around in the industry, because like where somebody's at, and say if they are like an intern at a record label, they might be the executive director for some major thing later, like 5 years down the road. So just like go in making friends. Some people you click with, some people you don't. Cool, like you're human, but just kind of like, just, you know, you'll start to begin and start to figure out like what works for you, and you'll be able to apply that, because there's just a lot of people out there, but you know, like it also just goes back to like what you really want to like focus on. So this brings us to our next point, networking 101. And this is something like, Martin, you touched on just a little bit, but maybe, you know, like you also see like the word like elevator pitch everywhere, like, and but it's also like, oh, do you just like ride elevators like all day, and then you just wait till somebody like comes in, and then you're like, all right, 30 seconds spiel, like, this is what I do, and then but that's not the case. Like, that's not like, you know, like like how do you begin an elevator pitch, and where do you find it's most effective? Like, where do you find like you're in a situation And because you touched on like you had a DJ that just like introduced themselves like I have this many streams. That's gonna like put off people, but you know, like, and how can you like turn that into a positive? Like, can you just like talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, straight up don't tell someone how much streams you have or like how much money you make in a year or something. I guess that's where like that hand flyer really comes in handy, because then that's basically your elevator pitch, or at least it gives you like a note for it. But there's also, I guess, I hate calling it like an elevator pitch, but it's kind of just saying like who you are, really. Usually the technical stuff, like how many streams you have, that you've been covered on Noisy or something, that usually comes later. First, just see like who you are, I guess, as like in an essence of a person, I guess, and have different ones depending on what you're doing, I guess. Because like I say, I don't know, like with all our trifecta artists, we've always told them like you represent yourself first, and your main goal is to like make sure represent yourself and represent whatever band that you're with at the time. So then say my band Samurai Champs is showcasing at a festival, I'll usually say something like, hey, I'm Marv, I play in a hip hop boy band, just because like a boy band's funny, called Samurai Champs. We're kind of like hip hop R&B, kind of like mix OVO and Soul Election together and add like a hardcore band, and that's us. And that's only if you know what Soul Election and OVO is. If it's someone that maybe from a different field, then we just say something like, oh hey, we're Samurai Champs. Just think like Backstreet Boys plus Beastie Boys or something. Because even when they may not be a hip hop person per se, it really, really helps to just get their contact anyway. Because you never know, they probably have a friend that may be helpful to you, or you probably have a friend that isn't in your genre that might actually be able to benefit from this guy. So say that's if I'm I guess like pitching us as Samurai Champs. There's been times that I just go maybe represent something that we're not playing in, that one of our artists is in, like Low, and I've said like, oh, I'm Marv. I run like a festival and an artist collective called Trifecta in the middle of nowhere called Saskatchewan, and I'm also an artist, but here I'm representing my artists from our collective, Low. So that's just like a person thing, and I guess like one of our producers too, he'll say like, oh, I'm actually a producer here. I'm not an artist showcasing, but I am playing keyboards in this band showcasing. And then after that, then usually we, like, I guess, ask permission. You always ask for permission. Like, oh, is it okay if I give you like a quick spiel about what we've done? And then you say like, oh, I've got X billion streams and like we've been covered on Vice, Noisy, blah, blah, blah. Once they've kind of, I guess, got an idea of who you are as a person, more so. Like, oh, we're Beachbody. Like, we have beach bodies. I don't know. And this is so dependent on your personality too. Say like, this is from a long time of seeing what works, at least for me, because I'm very naturally an awkward person. But if you meet our DJ, I swear, I like stayed at his mom's house. I've known him for 3 years. Still only heard him say maybe like 8 words in total. He does not talk at all. Ron never talks. But he's just so good, like most kids are these days, I guess, at the social media game. So he does an even better job of, instead of that follow-up email, sometimes I can't follow up with every email. I try, but he's the one that follows them on all our Instagrams. He's like, he becomes friends with them on all our Facebook things, Twitter, everything. Just so kind of goes back to that exposure thing, that 7-8 exposure. Sometimes you won't even really need to keep in contact with someone if you're friends with them on social media. And then next time you see them maybe at another showcase festival, and the industry's like so small, you keep seeing the same people all the time. They'll actually know what you've been up to. It's like, oh, I saw you got featured on that blog or whatever, just from, I guess, like your shy ass DJ remembering to follow everybody on Instagram. So that's like, that usually works sometimes. But then your elevator pitch, I swear it's like the email. You gotta be personal about it. It can't be based on your career. Your career stuff needs to be a spiel later on once the person is warmed up. And maybe that doesn't even follow. Maybe the vibe is so wrong that you just press open on the elevator and just zoom out.
So, okay, so what are kind of like the main points that should be in your elevator pitch? If you only have 30 seconds to a minute to like just chat with somebody, like what are kind of like some of the key components that you should definitely just like focus on because like I'm really glad you said that, you know, to be like focusing on the business stuff, because that can always like come out afterwards. Like you want to like emphasize on just like making a friend first. So like what would you think?
Okay, this comes from like two sides of the coin, because some people say don't compare yourself to other bands, because like why would you listen to you then? You would just listen to the other bands. I disagree with that, at least in this context, just because for the most part at these showcase festivals, no one knows who you actually are yet. You should use references to other things. So say, at least in my world, like the hip hop world, everyone knows who Soul Action is and OVO. Those aren't even artists, they're more so like collectives of artists, and that just gives like a broad, loose thing of a sound. Or if someone doesn't know, I guess, isn't from like the hip hop field, then everyone knows who the Backstreet Boys is, and everyone knows who Beastie Boys are. So then in that case, then you could say that. Or I don't know, Beachbody dudes. What do you guys say? We're dudes with beach bodies.
We're still working on it.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, because you know, like when you go and you're well, like first of all, like if you go into like approach somebody, a lot of it has to do with like, hey, like I noticed that you're part of this festival or something like that, like just to kind of like work as to something to break the ice, but also like be prepared to listen. Like don't say like what you do, I would say, until you're asked, because if you go in and it's just really intense and you're like, this is what I do, like what about you, like I think that can like really like work against you as an artist. The other thing that I find too is that you were talking about like comparing yourself to bands. Like you can say that you are the most original, like, I don't know, indie pop band, there's nobody doing what you're doing, and yeah, like, you know, like to like what you're, I guess like what you're essentially like tying to yourself. But, you know, like a lot of times is when somebody goes and they either like listen to a band, they're essentially going to take their own personal influences, and that's what they're going to tie to what you sound like. So just be aware when, if you're like, you're going to approach somebody and be like, there's nobody that sounds like us. Well, I guarantee that if you're a rock band and if somebody only listens to AC/DC, they're going to be like, oh, they sound like AC/DC. So it just keep that in mind. Like, just almost like put yourself as like a general notation of like just a specific type of genre. Like say you do like electronic pop stuff, just call yourself just a pop band, and then just invite them out, because they'll interpret it to however they want. And just like don't be like thrown off by it. But when you are practicing your elevator pitch, just instead of being like, you know, we're like Backstreet Boys, comeback kid, like, so just be aware of, you know, if you're going to pick really obscure bands to compare yourself to, maybe pick bands that are getting tons of radio airplay right now to compare yourself to, because they'll instantly be able to tie some sort of reference, and then it might work out that they come watch you play, or you start to like build up some sort of relationship from it.
Yeah, I guess if we had to break it down, I would say like pick two genres, pick two bands that aren't too well known and aren't, I guess, like cultishly hated, and then maybe one more is like a live influence, and maybe like a, I don't know, like an interest point, so you can like lure them in. Like for Beachbody, I don't know if you guys have heard Beachbody, but I would say like, oh, we're like a shoegaze indie band. I guess you can kind of think of like Best Coast plus Dive, and we all love Beachbodies. So if you want to come to the show, you can see us.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That is, did you go into Halifax Pop Band too? Like you, sorry, that was an inside joke. Beachbody got into Halifax Pop. That's where I'm talking about that. Just tying it together.
Okay. You guys want to sign a trifecta? I'll come represent you.
Yeah, what is it, Marvin? Like that's. You also said your DJ was a shy ass, and he should probably change his name to DJ Shy Ass. Sorry, I had that in my head and I started giggling. Okay. All right, so the next thing that I really wanted to touch on is, okay, well, first of all, how is everybody doing? Like, everyone doing okay right now? I really appreciate just for you just being here and being like attentive and just listening to us like chat, because if you do have tons of questions, like we are going to save those till the end, but I just want to say like thank you just for being here and paying attention. We're almost done, so don't worry. If it's like starting to get hot in here, it's all good. I probably look like I'm blushing right now, like, but let's chat marketing materials. Like, you know, like so you're, you know, like got a showcase. Even if you don't have a showcase, you're attending a conference. Like, what sort of things do you bring? Like, what type of things that you should have on you that would like help just kind of like bridge the gap? Like, which type of things should you be handing out? Maybe leaving on tables. You know, like we can chat about like download cards versus CDs versus Dropbox and like the benefits of each. Like what is like Samurai Champs like to bring with them? Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Man, I'm gonna keep hammering on the point. You need a hand flyer. It's just so simple. It can't be a shitty hand flyer though. You need to make it good. It's gotta be well designed. If you can't design something, hire someone to do it. I swear, it'll save your life. Because it's easy. Usually you have a map of the festival. You can leave them on tables, patios, storefronts, venues, and then usually the more, if people see your face or whatever it is 7 or 8 times, there's a better chance of them coming. It's easier for you to introduce yourself to delegates, and especially after your show, assuming that people come and assuming the show went well, then usually people will ask like, hey, how do I find you? It's kind of loud if there's like a DJ playing, maybe, I don't know, maybe all your friends are being loud. You can just give them a hand flyer. The hand flyer is mandatory.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Would you prefer a hand flyer versus a business card that had your showcase times on it, or do you prefer something that's just a little bit bigger that somebody can like hold on to? Like, what's your take on that?
Big enough to read, but small enough to put in a bag, for sure. Because sometimes, at least from what we found, people get a bazillion cards. Your card may get lost. A hand flyer, not everybody has a hand flyer, at least. And then if it's big enough, then usually, say if they hate you and they do leave it somewhere, maybe someone else will find it. We've definitely found the hand flyer definitely works best. Usually 4x6. 4x6 works best. When it comes to, I guess, marketing materials for like your creative content, we've really found people don't want CDs anymore, and this is going to differ from genre to genre too. But especially in the case of like meetings or business-to-business meetings, and we haven't really talked about like one-on-one mentorship stuff yet, but when you're like meeting people super quick, a lot of these people get a whole stack of CDs, and CDs start to weigh a lot when they're heavy. A lot of new MacBooks don't even have CD drives anymore, but everybody has a USB drive, still, for now. And that's what we found usually works the best, just because you can have more than just, I guess, your songs. Especially if they're a festival booker, you don't even need a full live video. Maybe just like 30 seconds of like your most intense part. If you have a video there that they can see like, oh, this is good. If they're a publisher, oh, these tracks are good. Or if you're a collective like us, we literally just have a 2 gigabyte USB, there's folders from all of our artists, tracks from everybody, live, whatever things. And I actually gave, like, I don't know, the USB was given to Andy from Focus Wales because I was hoping that we would get in. We didn't get in, and then Lo got in. So at least if like you can't help yourself, at least you can help your friends, which is like, I guess like better than the first try. And I guess also try, especially on the hand flyers and any materials, make your stuff as simple as possible. And I mean your links. So if you have, I don't know, obscure social handles or with a whole bunch of numbers or 50 underscores, or Twitter is one thing, SoundCloud is one thing, make them all the same. Make it easy for people to figure out, easy for people to remember and read. And then even in that, say our USB, we also have it hosted on a Dropbox, but Dropbox links are usually pretty long. Use a tool like tinyurl.com. You just put your long link in, and then you type something like tinyurl.com/trifecta sucks, and then put that on the hand flyer. It's just way easier. Just try to make it as easy as possible for the person that's receiving this. Just think about it. You want them to like you and to book you, and these people have so many submissions to go through all the time.
So, okay, so what do you think about like when you're going to go in and approach somebody that works in the industry? Do you just automatically just like give them a flyer right away before even like introducing yourself? Or like what about like etiquette? Like when you're at a conference, like what works for you? Like what kind of things that you've seen in the past that like didn't work? What's your thoughts on that?
Always ask for consent, like anything in life. If they ask, oh, like what do you do? Then even before I'll say like, oh, I do this, I'll just say like, oh, can I give you like a hand flyer? And then they'll usually say yes. Like no one gets bitten by a piece of paper. Give them the hand flyer. You give your like little spiel, and then you give your professional thing like, oh, we've been covered by Vice, blah blah blah, blah. And then ask like for I guess like creative content. Like, oh, if you want to check out more of our music, there's like a link here on the hand flyer. Or if you have a MacBook here, do you want a USB? And then usually they'll say yeah. Or if there are some people that are more environmentally conscious too. They don't want a USB, they don't want a CD. They just rather prefer to stream thing on a link. That's totally cool too. But some people actually really like, I guess, the little, I don't know, like a little souvenir, especially if there's a sticker on it.
Yeah, because for myself, like I always find that just a really good way of like approaching the industry is you just say like, how do you receive music? Like, what's the best way you? Because sometimes they'll prefer a drop card. Sometimes they just prefer a Dropbox links in an email. Sometimes they prefer like an actual physical CD. Usually, like you can just quickly just ask and they'll just tell you. But it does work that if you are like, say, like you run out of USB sticks, make yourself like a Dropbox link that has like your bio, like high-res photos, a stage plot, music, links to all your socials, and like the best way to get in contact with you. And if there's like anything that works towards as like a one sheet that, you know, like what other people are talking about you, those are really good things to enter, but then just quickly email it to yourself, because as you're talking to somebody, you can just quickly forward it to them like mid-conversation. So, and then you can just like focus on just building on that relationship. Also, I've learned that like people really love just to hear all the cool things that they've done. So as you're doing your research and you pick out if they've worked on like a certain festival, ask them about the festival first before you start pitching your own band, because like they'll talk about what you're doing, but then they'll just, you know, like most of the time they'll just say, hey, like what about you? Like what brings you here? And then it's just something that it's like cool, that just automatically broke the ice, that where you can start like talking about yourself and not feel like you're trying to sell them on something. It's more of like an organic approach.
Yeah, I'll almost always ask what they do first, if I don't already know. Like if, I don't know, maybe you can mention like, oh, my band played, or my friend's band played your festival the other year. Or just ask like, what do they do? Because, I don't know, I'm assuming most of you are stoked on your bands, right? These people are usually stoked on the magazine they write for, or the festival they book for. They probably want to talk about their own stuff too. And all that stuff in the EPK, like your bio and all your links, this can go into a USB as well. And I guess this is always like a thing that people have a hard time figuring out, but the easiest way, if you just go to your browser, highlight your URL and drag that to the desktop, it makes like a clickable icon that goes right to the link. That is the easiest thing usually to put into a folder, because then once they get the folder, whether it's like a USB or like a Dropbox or something, they just click that, they go to your website, and then you're good. Make it as easy as possible.
And just like I put up just a couple of examples of you know, some of the flyers that Samurai Champs have produced. So just kind of like review the sort of information that's being put on here. If you need like examples and you're going to be attending a conference, reach out to one of us at SaskMusic, because we can definitely either make recommendations or provide examples of just say copy the exact same layout but just make it your own. But this is just something to kind of give you just a bit of an idea of like what's going on, the type of information that's being included. Also, if you are applying for showcase support, always make sure that you include the funders like at some, like just somewhere on like your I guess like a flyer. You don't really have to do it like on a business card, but this is just kind of like one side. Usually like there's two sides to it. On like one side it'll just say Samurai Champs, and it'll just be like a big photo of the group, and then on the other side it'll just have all the information. So yeah, here.
I remember one thing that Vanessa Cito from Coalition said for sure is on any of these things, I don't know why this really matters, but she said make sure you have these icons for some reason, just because I guess some people don't really know what you're available on, and they actually like to see that. Because for, I don't know, say if it's someone that doesn't believe in streaming and doesn't believe in iTunes, believes in the money going right to the band, they're probably going to want to see like a Bandcamp icon or something, and make things super simple. Like and plus these flyers are only 4x6. You you gotta really save your real estate. So then if your handles are just nice and concise, you don't need to put a whole bunch per different Twitter, Instagram, whatever. It can just be one thing at a time. And one thing that we've gotten, like say, at South by Southwest, we played 5 shows. So that was a lot to fit on one thing. But one of them was the M from Montreal, and one was the BreakOut West one. And then so people that were from the M from Montreal and BreakOut West camp usually actually appreciate that. They're like, oh, thanks for sticking our logo on. Like, we're stoked on the festival that we do too, so we're trying to get our name out there too. And if you have some space, we try to include like a press quote or something, because then people see like, oh, it's not just these guys that think they're the shit. Other blogs think they're the shit too. It's like a website or like an EPK. You almost want Handflyer to be like a mini website kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, like, but at the end of the day, also like, just don't rule out business cards, because like I would have both. I would have business cards and I would have flyers. That's.
Oh, and have CDs too. I mean, I know I don't emphasize CDs, but just still bring some. Sometimes people are so stoked, they're not even going to listen to the CD. They just want something from you.
This is just a couple more examples. I'm not too sure of like those like on the webinar. When Marvin was talking about just like the little like social media tags, like that was just essentially like maybe you want to just kind of like read those out of just like what you have. Just
SamuraiChamps.com at SamuraiChamps or TrifectaYQR at TrifectaYQR.
Okay. And then there's like symbols of like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and iTunes. So.
Yeah, and then this stuff, especially, this was when we just released something. So if you don't have a new release, maybe it doesn't matter, but usually like to see like the Spotify and iTunes icons, just so people know you're more legit than just a SoundCloud rapper.
And then for our next slide, I just kind of wanted to give like yes, like this is Samurai Champs, like marketing materials that they bring out to conferences and showcases. The next one right here, so I don't know, I had to like scan these, but like I really wanted to just like touch on, okay, so up over here is Ben Kaplan has this do not disturb sign that he made. It was, we went to Folk Alliance, and honestly, like this was like probably one of the most like brilliant things I've ever seen an artist do. Like be creative with what you're doing, and I really want to just like bring this here just to show that, you know, like you don't always just have to like make the structure of like a flyer. You can also be creative, and you can create your handles. And so pretty much this was at Folk Alliance in Kansas City. After showcases, like all the private showcases within, I don't know if it was Ben Kaplan personally or if it was like he paid somebody, literally went to every single floor in this hotel, and if somebody had a do not disturb sign, he changed it and he put his own. And which I think is genius, because at the very bottom, it's actually, so he has like a streaming link, and so it works as like a download card. So has like all your information there, also has all the showcase times. But it was like one of those things that somebody like just took, and like I made sure to keep this because I always wanted to make sure I use it as an example. I'm not saying like if you're all going to go to BreakOut West, don't all make it but I'm just saying like it's like you can think outside the box, and it works as like a really cool talking point. I would honestly, like if I booked anything, I would book Ben Kaplan, because like I probably keep it on my desk. I don't know why, but it's just something I reference to that, you know, like it's just, I don't know. I love like creative ideas when like people can like handle like their marketing that way. So I guess like another example here is the Dead South. They have a Smoozian at Americana. It just works towards as a postcard. And there was actually, I think there was actually like a pre-made stamp on it, so you can like write out like what show you're at, and you can like mail it to yourself or whoever, which is really cool. The only thing, and I'm just like, I don't care, I'm gonna like draw attention to it, there's just no contact information on that postcard. So just like make sure that you do have contact information. Also, the Garys here, so you know, like they have a business card, and it's very bright. I wish I actually had like the actual examples, but you know, like Samurai Champs, like you have like your branding, and like there's like a lot of like black in it and like darker colors. But I also think too, like to be colorful with your business cards or flyers that you are going to be handing out, because sometimes you are going to be meeting somebody in like a dark room, like at a showcase or like out on the street, and like it is something that like will pop. So just keep that in mind. Okay, conference tips. Okay, so, you know, like a lot of this, like, well, not a lot of it, like some of it's going to be, we're just going to repeat a few things that we already did talk about, but we can like definitely emphasize on it. One of those things that like, if you decide that you're going to go to a conference, even like before you're going to go and showcase, like 9 times out of 10, a music conference will have its own festival app. Always download the festival app because you can start building your schedule on there. And like, I really like festival apps because they actually send you reminders. Even if there's something that you're unsure that you can go attend, at least you're aware of everything that's going on. You can also like, well, sometimes like through an app, you'll be able, if you register as a delegate, you can reach out to other people too. And you can work it as like a messaging hub. Like sometimes on when you register as a delegate, it does not include your own email or anybody else's, but they use the app or like any sort of like website. They use their own website as a structure that you can like start making your own meetings and have direct contact with somebody. Because at the same time too, they also want to like start looking at. They don't want all these people to get spammed. They want people that register as delegates, so they're already paying to be there, and they're looking at setting up an email. And but you have to be direct, so it kind of like makes you be personable about like what you're trying to do. The second thing, and this is something like Brittany and I like we always talk about, is like find a grocery store. Like once you arrive, go and find a grocery store, because sometimes, like especially if you're in the UK or you know, like you're talking about exchange rates, you're in the US, you know, like food's not cheap, and you know, like sometimes you just need to go and find a grocery store, stock up, like even with breakfast items, snacks, like healthy snacks, because you got to be aware, you got to like keep things in motion. You don't want to just be like, I don't know, just eating like chips the entire time, and then by like after 4 days, like you're just so exhausted because you're just eating like sugary stuff. You talked about RSVPing to everything. Even if you don't plan on going, you never know who you're going to link up with, and they're just going to say, hey, why don't you come out with us? We're going to go hit this up. Cool. And that wasn't even like all my plan, but yeah, I'll join. But then at least you don't get turned away at the door.
And sometimes there's free food.
Sometimes, oh yeah, not sometimes. Most of the time, there's usually free food if you show up early. So if you're on a budget, you know, like keep that into account. Bring 2 pairs of shoes. You know, like conferences, some of them start like right at 9:30 in the morning, and then they go until about 5 p.m. And then usually there's about an hour of like some sort of like networking reception, and then it leads into like whatever showcases are happening in the evening. Most of the time, you know, if you're on your feet all day, you're walking to and from, like your legs are gonna get tired. Like just switching out your shoes and your socks can like just refresh and just kind of like put you in the mindset of that, like, all right, this is the second half of my day, and I want to be on because this is where I get to actually like, you know, I might bump into somebody and have a beer with them, or just something like that.
Or rain.
Or rain, yeah, that's
like in The Great Escape. In Brighton's kind of like Victoria, half our band was destroyed because they only brought 1 pair of shoes. Stuff like that. Even if it's just like, I don't know, a pair of sneakers, 2 pairs of sneakers, or maybe like if you can, a pair of sneakers and boots. Like a trick that we started doing, if you have like carabiners, you can just easily carabiner the shoelaces, or like if there's a clip and shoot and like clip them to your bag, just so you can carry them around. They're not taking a lot of space. I can't emphasize enough. You need two pairs of foot gear.
Yeah, not like sandals and like I don't know
red bags.
Yeah, just really like you know like just go, like if you have runners, like wear runners. Like no one's gonna be like, oh, like what are those? Like so nobody's gonna like make fun of you. Like we're all in this together. And so just bring like shoes that you can switch out that are comfortable, because you're going to be on your feet a lot. The next thing here, so probably like 90%, the majority of conference panels are going to be in a hotel. So when you are booking your travel, like, yes, like you might be looking for an Airbnb and you might be able to save like $100 or something like that, and to like book yourself like where you're a 15-minute drive, you know, take them into account, because like you want to be at the conference hotel. You want to be there. You want to be taking panels. That's where all like the industry is going to be. Even if somebody's not on a panel, like people will be hanging out in a lobby. Just plan on being as close to the hotel as possible, just so you don't miss out on anything. Because it's one of those things that, yeah, like you might be able to build a relationship with somebody, and you might be able to like make something happen because you're part of discussions, you're part of like group conversations. But at the same time too, like, you know, all of a sudden you're like, oh, but like if I go back to my Airbnb that's 15 minutes away, I might just be too exhausted as soon as I kind of like sit down like in a chair, and I just don't want to go and do anything. You might miss out on like a really awesome opportunity. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, buy delegate pass. You know, like you're gonna go, and this kind of like keeps you in the loop of like RSVPing to stuff, to making sure that your picture shows up on like the database, that it's gonna work as like your face, because not only are you reviewing like who's going to be attending, they're also going to be reviewing who's going to be attending. And if they start to see like, oh yeah, like I see this person everywhere, I better go and just say hey, or like, or it's like, oh, like they're wearing like, I don't know, like you're talking about Dynalone Records, so they're wearing a Dynalone Records death metal shirt or something like that. Cool, like I know I can like chat with them about that. Like if they just saw something in a photo. So yeah, keep that. You know, like keep that in mind. Like if you're a band going but you want to save on costs, like just appoint one person to be the band representative and let them get the delegate pass. Well, the other band kind of goes out and like does other things. That one person can be there attending anything. They can be there like taking in all those meetings. It's just that one like point of contact. So, you know, if you're gonna go, just like I do recommend, like this is something that you can be including in like your showcase grants as well. So honestly, like there's no excuse to not get a delegate badge. Yeah. Okay. Download WhatsApp. Sometimes a bunch of people have iPhones. Sometimes people have like Blackberries or Androids. WhatsApp, it just works as like a collective that you can have one messaging system, have the entire band on there, have us like SaskMusic on there as well, because we can like post something to like the group chat and be like, hey, I'm at this networking event, tons of good people here, come on down. Or you might be like checking out like a cool band or something like that, or you know, like you might be like food recommendations, like, hey, anybody has a free hour, let's like go grab some ramen or something like that. WhatsApp is like just a great way that you can just all stay like connected instead of trying to like navigate through emails or message like other people. So just make sure like you do get WhatsApp, because it works like in every country. So it's great.
Yeah, most industry people use WhatsApp, especially like abroad. Or if you get really lucky and I don't know, there's like a circle, like a group WhatsApp of writers for a magazine or something, and then you make friends with one of them, you get invited to that WhatsApp, then you get to be friends with all of them, and then you hit the mother load. But that's only sometimes. But you got to download the app.
Let's just going to go to the next thing here. Showcasing tips. I guess for like this next thing here, I'm going to talk about this real quick because it's something that did happen when I was out in Germany. If you're going to be performing overseas, research the type of power supplies that are required when you showcase. Yeah, like I see like a lot of nods. Like, yeah, it's one of those things that it's really easy to overlook, but like, I don't know how many like Transformers like Samurai Champs flew like with your DJ at like the Great Escape.
I don't know, like 7.
Yeah, and so just be aware, like a lot of times you will show up at an event and they'll already have like a power supply there, but just go and buy your own. If you need recommendations, like reach out to us, because we chat with the bands on what they use. Just always have your own. Sometimes like somebody will be showcasing and they'll swipe it and they'll like take it to like their next show because they didn't have one. So just plan to have the proper power supply, because the last thing you want, you just flew like 5,000 kilometers to go perform and then all of a sudden you can't. Like, you know, life happens. So just kind of keep that in mind. Next thing, this is probably like one of the most crucial things that if you are showcasing, be early. do not just show up like 30 minutes before your showcase and just think everything's going to be fine, because a lot of times showcases, they'll have stage managers tied to them, and they're looking for bands, the next band that's ready to go, because they will also want to review their stage plot with them, and they just want to be like, has there been any changes? Because like they're going to run that over with the sound tech. Be early, just be present. I recommend on showing up anywhere from like 2 hours like beforehand, 1 hour minimum. If you think that you're going to be late, message like a SaskMusic staff member, message like you're definitely going to be in contact, with like a stage manager, message them, just let them know what's going on. Just don't show up like when you're supposed to go on and think everything's going to be okay, because this is one of those things that showcases don't revolve around the bands. You pretty much, you get the opportunity to perform at a showcase, and if you're late, that cuts into your time. That's not going to cut into like the next band's time at all. If you show up, or even if there's like technical difficulties or something like that, and you only get to play for 10 minutes, cool. Like that's just how it goes, because a lot of times for festivals, like they run a really tight schedule, and it's just kind of like the nature of the beast.
And it's usually good if you come early too. Like that's part of the prep. Usually the people that you invited to your showcase may actually be there, so it's probably good to grab a drink with them or something, and there's usually free food.
Also, yeah, okay, I've already touched on that. Stage plot. Make sure you have a proper stage plot. I did not put up one as an example. If you need like recommendations or like anything, just reach out to us and we can provide examples. There's even like a website where you can literally just build a super awesome stage plot. But like stage plots are so important, and they'll just kind of like, the easier you are to deal with, like, you know, people remember that, and it's one of those things to, like, just to take into account that if you have like a stage plot and you have specific type of amps that you want to use, but like a lot of times, like if you're going to be showcasing, the entire thing is going to be backline, and they might not have exactly what you want, but if you can give examples that they can give a rough idea of what type of sound you're going for, they will try to accommodate that and like make it work. But you can't really like send that in an email, be like, I need double kicks, when that wasn't in your stage plot. So just kind of like keep that in mind, and also just like make an actual like digital stage plot. Just don't write something on like a napkin and just be like, here you go. Like, to be a professional about it. Like, it's, you know, like, it's like this showcase is for you. It's not for like the stage manager, you know. It's like just put your best foot forward, even if you're, you know, like the only person that you're talking with at the time is just somebody through email. So just keep that in mind. But also like having a good crucial stage plot, because if someone asks you, like, say, like every conference is different, but say you're at like Folk Alliance, I'm still gonna like refer to this one because we have quite a few Saskatchewan artists that do attend Folk Alliance. But if you create like a one sheet, like that just kind of has like your career achievements on it, maybe on the backside, if it's gonna be blank, put your stage plot on it. Because you might be surprised at how many like festival buyers or just like a promoter might like take something and they flip it over and they're like, oh, cool, like this is something that I can provide backline with. I can make it super easy. Or if you're performing as like a duo or like a solo act, you know, just having that there, then like somebody's like, cool, like I book house concert tours, and then they'll just kind of like keep that into account if they like what they see.
That could be like another thing that you, maybe if you have a friend that does design, you invest a little bit more time into, like along with the hand flyer. Because still at these showcases, like you can be the best technical band ever, but if the sound guy doesn't understand what sound you're going for, it could throw everything off. One of the best examples I've seen was Tyson from Slow Down Molasses. His stage plot for his band actually has pictures of his band's faces by each instrument. It looks pretty ridiculous, but then it makes a lot of sense, because like, say someone wants like a heavy plate reverb on their vocals or something. If you put that reverb, if the sound guy puts that reverb on the wrong guy, then it could throw everything off. So even just something like that makes them like easy to look at, and maybe even plaster your faces on it if possible.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. And it kind of goes back to like the Ben Kaplan, like do not disturb sign. Like just be creative. Like anything that you feel that will make somebody else's job who's never heard of you before easier, that's the way to go. Just like just do things that can accommodate to make somebody else's job where they're on their feet for 12 hours like during that day. And just like do something that they can just like not really have to think about it, because I know that they'll do whatever they can in their power to make sure that you have an awesome experience. Bring your own breakables. This is like another thing. Don't assume that they're going to have what you want at a showcase. Bring your own like cymbals, bring your snare. If there's like a specific type of like signature sound that you want, and like amps and stuff, that's a little bit different. But like bring your own instruments. You know, if there's like a specific type of kit, there's gonna be tons of bands playing on this stuff. So you don't know like what the like, you know, something could be like damaged, like you don't know what type of like conditioning these things are going to be in. So if you are going to be doing showcases, just like plan to bring your own stuff. If you do bring your own amp, that cuts into your time. Make sure that you reach out and you let people know well in advance that you are going to be bringing your own thing, just so that they know what to do, because surprises, they just don't work out well. Like it's like people will try and make it work, but maybe they can start working on like a setting on the PA or have like a separate mic already like ready to go that just won't cut into the band's time. And then, man, this is probably like one of the biggest ones. Don't be discouraged if people leave during your set. Like, you know, you got all this industry that's going to be attending like tons and tons of bands that are going to be out there. And if they show up, even if it's for 5 minutes, that's amazing. That is so good, because they actually like took the time out of their busy schedule to come and watch you perform. And you know, you might see them like while you're playing, but just don't be upset if they do have to go and they have to leave, because they actually build quite an extensive schedule, especially if it's like a festival buyer or any sort of promoter, and they're starting to look at like what type of bands that they want to be bringing to their festivals. They actually have this ginormous list of like bands that they want to check out. So just keep that in mind, especially like, you know, like for Samurai Champs, you know, like I'm sure like you see people come and go all the time.
Yeah, it's really different playing like a showcase festival as opposed to just like a regular show. And these are things to be like, the more aware of it you are, I guess, like the better prepared you could be. But even when you prepare for it emotionally, it is like an emotional preparation thing. You get better at it as time goes on too. Once you kind of understand like where they're coming from the other side. Like I forgot, there's some UK name for like the blue face or something. I don't know. It's just like when you're playing a show and like all you see are these blue faces because everyone's just like looking down at their BlackBerry or something. Like these people are trying to like cram their schedules with as many bands as they can see. If they come in just for one song, that one song actually might be all that matters. Like for at least like during our South by Southwest set, like what the dude from Music Matters, just like second song in, he was like, as long as you just if they're there, that's already a huge win. If they're not there, that's not even a lose anyway, because they never show up anyway. I've spent like whole weeks maybe working a room and then nobody shows up. And it's not to say they didn't show up. It's they knew someone else was coming, so they asked about us later and that turned into something else. Or even take it the other way. There's been times like if you see an industry person dancing or like vibing or giving you dreamy eyes or something, then you really won. I swear, if one industry person gives you dreamy eyes, that's almost like getting, I don't know, like 200 regular kids to mosh or something. It's a really different ball game, and it's just something to keep in mind. And also if you're the front-facing person for your band, like I am for some reason, it's good to prep your band emotionally too, because this can be kind of demoralizing, right? If your drummer's really used to like, I don't know, really energetic shows, and they're like, oh man, no one was digging it. Just like, no, that in this context is people digging it. Just, you got to make sure everybody's kind of on the same page. And a lot of these things, nothing actually comes of it maybe till like 2 years later. Even the first time I went to Germany, I didn't think anybody actually came, but ended up our US publicist now, his name is Moose, he was there, but I didn't get to meet him. And then I met him a few months later. Things kept going, like another year passed, and then they ended up being the team that did our South by Southwest campaign like 2 years later. So that kind of stuff, there's no way to really predict in the short term. You got to look at it as like a long-term investment for sure.
Yeah, just look at it as like planting seeds, because like it's really tough to just get immediate results. But a lot of times is that you are going to be showcasing just to like, like start showing up for stuff. Like just make sure like, if you say you have budget to be able to do like one showcase and like a conference a year, because there's also like you're a school teacher, for example, and you have to like kind of like budget in that time. But just like, like when you go and if somebody is like there, but you reach out to them, like, but still keep that conversation going. Like, just don't feel that like, like you're like, you play and then that's it. Like, you're like, all right, I guess I didn't get signed to a record label. Like, I quit music. Like, just don't take that into like account, because when you plant a seed, I take the seeds as like the industry that will be attending your showcase. Even if it's like a seed can be like your artist name that somebody might be throwing around. Like eventually, like it is going to flourish into like something that can really like benefit you. But it's like it all just takes time. For some people, it can take like 6 months. For other people, it can take like 10 years for like things to really like happen. Look at the Dead South, for example, when like before they like became like these massive artists in Germany. Like they showcased at Canadian Music Week, and I think there was only 4 people in the room. And one of those people was York from Devil Duck Records, and he was the one that took them on and was like, yeah, I can see them like doing really well in my own market. But also like maybe for the band on stage, they're like, well, this kind of sucks. It kind of hurts. Only 4 people showed up to actually like come see us play, but that 4 people, that one contact they got, like look at like where they're at right now, and it's you just never know. So just be open to it.
Yeah, I guess if you're going really, really extra about it, like you want to prep as much as possible, there's only so much you can explain to your band, but it's usually best if you go through it as close as you can to the real experience, I guess. So yeah, I guess we explained to our band how this is like, but we almost put them through it as well. So like, I don't know, we'll actually have a test show as a hip hop band in a country bar where everybody hates us. And right before, I don't know, like right after we all like chug Red Bulls or something, so we're all like jittery. It's almost good if you can like almost simulate these things before. So by the time you actually get to that showcase stage, it's no big deal. You've already done it. Because even like that is pretty, I guess, like disheartening, especially if you're not used to it, seeing like, oh, there's nobody here. But really, I guess we could tell our band this too. It's like, when we're here, this is our job. Like our job isn't to have fun. Usually we have fun on stage, and we have fun. That's a plus. But our job today is just to play as best as we can, even if there's like one person there that looks like they're hating us. Just get through it as if this is like the best show ever. And usually when we have that attitude, that one person that looks like they're hating us just has like a really grumpy face that ended up, I don't know, booking us for something else.
Okay, so and also there's just a bit of a myth about that showcasing as the end result. Like once you get into like that showcasing circuit, like cool, like I made it. Like that's not the case. Treat showcases as like a step into like, almost works as like a celebration, as like a hub that you're going to have like access to all this industry to kind of help you get to like your next set of goals. Like showcasing, that's not the end game at all. It's only supposed to be there to help like elevate and just get to that next step. So, like I truly see it as like, if you get accepted to showcase, that's also when you're like a ton of work is going to start, and you really have to start keeping things in line on just like, all right, like is my business plan up to date? Are these things that I really want to be pushing towards? Like it's time, like, oh geez, like the work is really going to begin just for like that next step. The other thing that I really want to like touch on here is that when you are showcasing, just make sure that you say your name minimum 3 times. You can have banners set up, you can have like a projection on the wall, but like again, like it's really easy to miss it, but make sure you say who you are at the very beginning, the middle, and at the very end. Like even if you have a set list, write it up, like just so it's there and you can see it, and then it works as like just a subtle reminder. Also, like when you finish doing a showcase, always mention where you're going to be afterwards, because if there's a good chance somebody wants to come and talk to you, like you're hustling and you're trying to get all your gear off stage as quickly as possible, and like it's really good, like if you have like t-shirts or you have like merchandise set up, or just say like, hey, we're going to be by the bar. If you want to come and chat with us, that's where we're going to be. We just love to just like meet you and just say, hey. If you just throw it out there, it just works as like a guaranteed meeting point. Just kind of like keep that in mind. Also, tag your song when you're going to be performing it, because you know there might be a time when somebody's like, oh, like I just love that first song and I just really want to know what it is, or say like you know, a music supervisor comes out and they just like they got to know that title, and you never know who's going to be in the room, so just make sure that you like say what the song is. Anything to add to that?
I guess like, yeah, usually if the showcase went well, that I guess following 5 to 15 minutes, that's when the people that loved you, there's a lot of emotional investment at that point, and you have to capitalize on that. So your whole band needs to stay in the room. Whoever is better at that needs to be like at the merch table or by the bar, ready to talk to people. And not everyone can do that, and that's okay too. But maybe just like divide the tasks. Like whoever doesn't want to talk to people, they're in charge of just taking down the stage just for that day. And that also bleeds into other things too. So like our DJ, super introverted, super quiet, only says 8 words, but it's like his mind is connected to the internet. So say we know full well we're not going to put him in the conference to talk to people, but he is that guy that's going through every list of every RSVP to make sure we don't have to buy any food at South by because we have every free food pass ever. So just like learn what your band's strengths are, not just in music, but I guess like in the way they think too. Like in North by Northeast, like it was kind of unorganized. We didn't get the links to things, and like Ron found all of those links, right, from where we need to be.
Yeah. Well, that kind of like brings us to the last slide, and that's mental health. And I think this is something that gets overlooked, and sometimes like even when you're looking at social media experiences that bands are having at things, and it's just like it's glorified. It's just like, oh, this is so awesome. Like they're having all this fun, like all this stuff is going on. But there's a huge like mental and physical health aspect to it, and like attending a conference can just be emotionally exhausting, especially like depending on like the type of like personality that you are. Like, you know, you have to like try to like sell your project, but also like you have to meet with like all these people, and you're surrounded like, and everyone's just trying to like sell a product, and the product being their music. And you know, it's like, where do you even begin? It's like it's really easy to get caught up, and I can't stress this enough, because you know, like mental health is definitely like a topic that is becoming more common as like a conference subject, where like people are like spending a good hour, like, or 2 hours, like talking about it. Even like the Great Escape Festival, once a year, they actually like pick some sort of topic that they focus on, and they'll do like an entire day worth of panels, but they'll choose it towards one topic. And like one year was actually mental health. So this is something that like I really just wanted to go over, because like everyone is human, the industry is human, bands are human, and like things can be absolutely like intense, stressful, and overwhelming. Like, and I'm not saying this to be like, oh, like you gotta be tough, you gotta like go and like tie up those shoes and like make it work. Like, I'm just saying that it's okay that if you have to miss like a mixer, you have to miss a panel because you just need some time just to recoup. You need to get some fresh air. Like when we were talking before about like the majority of like the conference aspects, because they do happen in hotels, a lot of times you get that recirculating air. It's almost like being on like an airplane for like 4 days straight. And like it's okay to like just like take a step back and to kind of go and to like just to make sure that you're all right. So I just wanted to like talk about just a few points that relate to just kind of like, yes, you are going to go attend a conference, but like, you know, take care of yourself and take care of each other, because we're all in this together. The first one is, I guess like your eating habits. Like, you know, like if you can eat something healthy, like do it. You know, if you can take a nap, do it. I'm not saying like just spend the entire conference, because like you're also there to work, but at the same time, like, you know, like late nights, early mornings, and if you just need just a quick like hour just to recharge so that you can go out and you can go and like network and go see bands with other people and start to build those relationships. Like treat it as like, it's almost like the investment. I find, and this is like just for myself, but I find that if there's ever a time that, like, say there's like nothing happening and I might have like 30 minutes of just like downtime between like panels or a meeting or something like that, sometimes like I'll just go and I'll just like have just a quick, like just lay down, just really easy, but I actually like drink an entire cup of coffee before I do, and then it takes like a little bit for it to like start to like work its magic, and then you wake up and then you're like refreshed and you're just ready to go. But like, you know, I'm talking like, that's more so like referred to like if you're jet lagged or something like that. But just it's okay. Like, yes, we're talking about like how to maximize like showcasing and conferences, but also like it's okay that we can have a conversation about going for a walk and like to go outside and just make sure that you can kind of like recollect yourself, you know. And plus too, like if you see somebody like there's tons of bands at BreakOut West. If you see somebody that's maybe having a hard time, like just lend an ear, like just go out with them. Like look, like I said, look out for each other because we're all in this together. You were talking about like checking in with your bandmates and just like making sure like they're like emotionally like okay, because you're there to like deliver something. And even though it's like very short, like you might get like a 20-minute long showcase, but you know, just like the prep and like the financial like burden that can be like tied towards it, like it, you know, it is like stressful, and is like lots of things that's going on. I want everybody to be healthy and have like a productive experience, to be able to like maximize, like say you're in a meeting but you can barely keep your eyes open because like you were just out like drinking when you shouldn't have been, and because like that can happen, and then all of a sudden like you go to like meet with somebody and you're just not on your own like A game. So that actually like takes me into my next point, like don't get hammered. Don't treat conferences and showcases as a party, because if you're gonna go, you're going for the wrong reasons, because you're there to meet people. There is unfortunately there is a social aspect that is tied like to alcohol, because like a lot of times when you attend like a showcase or a networking event, sometimes like, you know, the bar will be open. Don't treat it as like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get slammed, and then just like who talk to people. Number one, like you're gonna slur your words, and no one's gonna want to talk to you. Number two, you're gonna like make this weird reputation that like, you know, that will stick. First impressions mean a lot, and yeah, like also, you know, if you're accessing like funding to go, like that's something that is going to be like looked down upon, you know, like if you're posting videos that you're just like absolutely wasted at 3 a.m, like your funders can like reject your funding, make you pay all that money back, because, you know, like I said, you're not there to like get hammered, you're there to like to work and to network. Yeah, I don't know, do you have anything to add to that? Because like I know like just for the amount of like showcases that you performed at, like yes, there is like open like an open bar or something like that. Do you have that conversation with your bands about like, you're here for this, you're not here to like to drink and stuff? But you know, I'll let you kind of talk about that.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of, that's why there's so many like music publications writing about why mental health is such an issue now, specifically in the music industry. If you guys know the band Odessa, they're like an electronic duo, and they gave like a really good talk at this festival that we played in Seattle, and then they were saying how it's really difficult to think about your music career like you would think of a more regular career, like if you do shift work or if you do like a 9 to 5. Because your 9 to 5 or shift work, your mental health is already taken care of by your schedule. You know, from 5 to 9, you're kind of chilling. Or for your days off shift work, you're just like hanging out for the most part. But then with music, you could always be doing more. And then so looking out for your mental health, and I'm only saying this because we've already kind of screwed ourselves over in this capacity, you can, if you take care of your mental health in the short term, in the week of the festival, then you ultimately maximize your opportunities for the week. If you take care of your mental health for like a month of touring, then you ultimately maximize your opportunities for your career for the year. And I guess examples of these are, I guess, especially in the hip hop world, you see a lot of, it's really, really ego driven. So you're always seeing like all these rappers trying to outdrink each other and not practicing and not treating, I guess, being an artist like a job. But ultimately, if you want to be a successful artist, it almost is as rare as being a successful athlete. And athletes don't just show up to a ball game and just like, they don't just show up to a ball game hammered. They go to the gym, they make sure nutrition's right. And it should almost be thought of in the same way in music, I think, as well. So depending on your personality type and your personality type as a band, like I know full well, like this is just like how we work, I guess, is we actually go through like those big five and Myers-Briggs or whatever, whether or not they have like real validity, scientific validity or not, just to get our personality types. Our whole personality type of our band is terribly introverted. So we know full well that if we have too much time around people, then this will ultimately affect us negatively. Because say this is affecting me negatively in like the conference setting, where I can't even like formulate words if I'm trying to make a good impression. But also even worse, what if we did all that time, all that prep, all that grant writing to get there, emails to prep people to get them to your show, and you can't even play your show. That's like the worst feeling in the world. So 2 key phrases that we always use, like, okay, feelings check, just to check everybody's feelings, and energy level. And you go out of 10, but you cannot use a 7. So, because like a 7, you can be like, oh yeah, kind of, I can power through it. But if it's an 8, okay, everybody's good, we're good to go. But if it's a 6, okay, maybe we should like take a little bit of a break. And the break doesn't even need to be that big. Like typically, at, I don't know, a bunch of festivals will have like an artist lounge. Like I know the Great Escape has like a Spotify lounge. South by has like an artist lounge. They usually have like free food, maybe like a massage or something. Like you're there to work, but also you earn this nice Spotify lounge. It's okay to take like a 20-minute massage or something, and that'll probably boost you back from like a 5 or 6 to an 8, and then you can probably do a lot more after that. I guess the only other thing, like, yeah, nutrition, you gotta focus on nutrition, you gotta focus on sleep. And I know it's difficult with jet lag especially, but if you try to keep, I guess, a routine, like if you normally work out in the morning at home, still try to work out while you're gone too. And that could be as easy as sometimes like the festival hotel has like a gym, sometimes you could just like go for a run or even just like a walk. That's it. Make sure you plan out your meals, because you don't have, I guess, like your 9 to 5 schedule protecting you. There's no like end point. You could send off more emails. You could book another meeting before that show. But if you're so drained by meetings and you're so drained by emails, what's the point of playing that show that wasn't even that good anyway, I guess. Like personally, that's how it was for us. And I'm only saying that because we did, I think like 15 showcases in the last like 2 years or something. And by this point, we were all like pretty exhausted. So this is where we kind of drew the line. I knew like one more. And this is actually where it started costing us professionally too. Like because we were so backed up with everything, we actually got booked for Singapore this year and we had to say no because we just couldn't do it. But we asked like, can we go next year? And we were going next year, so that's fine. But it's still obviously like you may lose out on I guess like opportunities if you don't look out for your mental health in the long run.
Yeah, and like plus two, like a lot of times like showcases they can run till like 2 in the morning or so, and say that you're hanging out and you're really hit it off with like a booking agent and you're chatting and things are going good. Like there's like a line here. It says like stay flexible, but almost good to plan out party days. But like you're not saying like you like plan out the day that you're gonna like. Oh, things are gonna be crazy and like I'm not saying that. It's just that like if you find that you're out with somebody and it's like the relationship is starting to develop and like you're checking out bands together and it's awesome, cool, stay out. But if you're just staying out for the sake of staying out, then I think you might kind of start to like miss the point. Like it's really easy to get caught up in like a lot of stuff that's going on because people are still out, but like just kind of like think about like what your next day is going to be like. And so like if you don't have to stay out late, then don't stay out late. Because conferences and conference panels start like roughly around like 9:30, Canadian Music Week probably has like one of my favorite conference like aspects for professional development in Canada. But like probably the best panels start at 8:30 in the morning. So just like something to keep in mind, like you want to go and you want to learn from like Kevin Lyman from like Warped Tour, and you want to like, and because he's like, or like he has like a free 30 minutes, like actually meet with somebody, just plan for that. But like just kind of keep that into account. But at the same time, be flexible so that if you are chatting with somebody and things are like happening, like just like it's okay to stay out. So yeah, just kind of like just gauge it, like you're only human. Do you have anything else to add to mental health?
Cheats for nutrition, frozen dinners that mainly are vegetables. They're usually like cheap too, and if you go from place to place, they like stay frozen. And vitamins, overload on vitamins. If you don't have a lot of time to eat vegetables or meals, just get like frozen dinners and vitamins. If you don't have enough time to drink water, just get some of those electrolyte packs. And then to fix jet lag, even a walk or like a run, just to reset your clock. And if you really need to power through something, at least for us, we really found like caffeine takes around like 20 to 25 minutes to metabolize. Just chug a cup of coffee, set your timer, sleep for 20 minutes, and then you have the boost of both caffeine and nap.
And like if saying like a conference is going to start like on a Wednesday or something like that, plan to show up a day before, because sometimes you don't know like what's going to happen with flights, and especially like if you have meetings planned and someone's going to take the time to meet you that very first day, yeah, like just plan to make sure that you are available, because life does happen and like flights can get canceled. This actually happened to me during I was in Los Angeles, and I was trying to get to Canadian Music Week, and I had a ton of meetings. I had like an entire day worth of meetings lined up, and I just had to like arrive. I think I was doing like a red-eye flight, and I was gonna get in like around like 8 in the morning, and I was like from the ground running, I was just like all meetings, and then my flight got like canceled. And pretty much then I spent like the rest of the time just trying to work around other people's schedules just to make sure I had that FaceTime, because even if people like reached out to me, I wanted to make sure that like we actually got to meet, because I do think that like I see it from like their point of view, and I see it from the artist's point of view, like it's really nerve-wracking like reaching out to somebody. So like you always just want, like even if you don't know where it's going to go, just go and meet, because you never know what's going to happen. That's it. Like we covered so much ground, and I can't thank you so much. Like see, like now I'm slurring my words. I can't thank you enough for like coming out and hanging out. But I wanted to open up the floor to questions, because like we covered a lot of ground, and if there's something that there's like specific to you, or like a friend, or if there's like something that like we can like chat about, the floor is yours.
You guys talked a lot about hand flyers. Would you bring one if you weren't showcasing somewhere?
If you're not showcasing at the festival, would you have like a show around the festival? Yes. If you have a new release, yeah, it's just yes to all of it.
Oh, okay.
Instead of the details for the showcase, you can fit in like maybe a show somewhere else around the festival, or maybe you have like a release that you're trying to promote or something. The hand flyer, it's your best weapon.
Yeah, or just something like a download link that works as like, hey, like you can preview our album for free, or something like, or you get 2 songs for free, or just anything. Yeah.
You guys were mentioning tiny URL before. What about QR codes? I mean, they're archaic.
Okay.
They work like they have.
Yeah, QR codes are awesome. I think it's just a matter, like I would really just like gauge if like I would just start asking your peers, and I would just start asking other bands, like, are you using QR codes? If so, how are they being utilized? Like I would just do the research, because I remember, I think it was like a couple years ago, everybody was putting QR codes like on posters. Sometimes you just see like like a giant banner, it would just be a QR code, but it like leads you to like a secret show or something like that. Yeah, I think that's absolutely great, but I think you also have to gauge, do people have, like if it's an iPhone, do they have a QR code app on their phone?
You don't even need it. You just point your camera with my iPhone. You point your camera at it and it just goes.
Oh, sweet. Like technology.
It definitely depends on region. Like we know we use QR codes in Germany, and like lots of bands do, and people really, really use it. But then there's a lot of, especially like kids don't know what QR codes are at all, so they'll just like think like, what's this weird block thing?
Yeah.
Or they'll be like, oh, Snapchat, and then they'll add to the Snapchat. But you can use that also if you're a band that's really active on Snapchat. That's the best way to get like young kids. You just got to do your research on the region.
Yeah. So yeah, like just for like a hard answer, I probably can't really give you one. Like we could just say yes and no because I think it's just a matter of like if you do like just I would just kind of have the research in place is this a way that people are marketing their bands? Because I know QR codes were really popular a couple of years ago, but I haven't really seen a lot of them today, just from the conferences I've like personally attended. So I would just kind of just keep that into account. But it's also like, like think about like the branding and how you want to tie into it, because I still think there is like a time and place for it. Yes. Yeah.
I wonder, are there any particular tips or things that come to mind for a solo artist showcasing?
Oh yeah, like how much time do you got? Like so for solo artists, like for showcasing, yeah, like again, like so you're there and like you have quite a few duties that you're going to be handling all yourself. The one thing that I really stress is just make sure that like you're giving yourself enough time to like properly like rest. And but yeah, like if you're performing as a showcasing artist, say that you're a solo artist but you can also perform as a full band. One of the best tips I would say is like if you have two different styles of like you can do house concerts and you can do like a show at a bar or something like that, have two separate stage plots, include them on like the same piece of paper. I think that like absolutely goes a long way. If you're a solo artist and say you're bringing out CDs and you want to talk like to the industry, like you're performing, and you want to say like, hey, like you can hear these songs on this CD, but it's actually as a full band. Just like emphasize on just like what it is, just so, because if someone like likes something and then they treat it as like, oh, I gotta listen to the CD, but it ends up being like something a little bit different, then that might just like throw them off just a little bit. But I think just like being like, giving like little subtle reminders that, like just to kind of gauge the market. But like depending on what you want to be pushing for, like you and I, like I think we should have a conversation and we just, because like I can map this like all out. Like you've all been like so patient with me enough, but like because I have like probably like another hour's worth of like content that I can like just talk about, just performing cater towards as a solo artist, because we see it as like solo artists versus full band. Like Megan Nash, for example. Megan Nash does both. You got Brady here, who's like part of like the band, so like has done like sometimes like a stripped down version of like a full band. Sometimes it's just Megan. Sometimes it's all Bears and Hazelmore and Megan Nash. So, and I think like Megan takes that into account because like her record, a lot of it is like a full band that's on the sound, and I think that is like actually like talked about too. So, was there anything like specific that you wanted to like chat about? Because
we're anticipating a lot of the stuff that has to be handled is sort of all in one person's.
Yeah.
If you're just there on your own.
Like, do you know Joel Henderson? Okay, so like, like chat with your fellow musicians. Like if you ever get a chance and like you go see somebody at a show, but you know that they've done some showcasing or something, like ask them if you can like take them out for a coffee, or if they have some free time, and just ask them like, how did you make this work? How did you go? Because like, I think there'll be a lot of similarities, but I think everybody will have their own unique perspectives on how they were able to like maximize something. I think it really just depends on who the person is and the artist, and like introvert, extrovert. I think there's a lot of key factors that go into it, but I think just like having a coffee with somebody, you can learn a lot. Yeah.
Relative to solo artists, is backing tracks acceptable at festivals or supplement performance?
Okay. Yes. I'll say yes, but I'm also going to give you a nightmare story. Backing tracks, awesome. If you're like just save money and you want to go and you want to perform, I'm going to use We Were Lovers as an example. So We Were Lovers, they actually perform with backing tracks, so it just sounds like a very like full symphonic type band, and it's great because they can bring 3 people, but it sounds like a 9-piece band, and like the drummer's going to be playing to a click track. It works out for them. Now this is the nightmare story. Okay, so I do think like, yeah, it's perfectly acceptable, but just make sure that you have everything loaded, ready to go on your own laptop, just so it's an easy fix. You can go up there, you plug and play, and it's ready to go. If you were to send like files or a USB stick to somebody that has like a sound tech or something like that, they might not have the proper gear to play it, or like a program. I guess like the nightmare story is that We Were Lovers were performing at South by Southwest. They ended up doing an outdoor show. It was like plus 35 outside. And so their laptop, like because of the heat, it morphed the backing tracks. Like it just heated up the laptop and it just started speeding everything up. So it was like, it was great. Like it was great because they could like provide like a full band sound just as 3 people, but it worked against them because the drummer literally like was playing to a click because they have to play to the backing tracks, had to take out their in-ear monitors or like whatever click and just like watch how somebody's strumming a guitar, and that was like their click, and they were just trying to keep it together. But also it was something that they couldn't control. Like they'd be playing and be like nice like hooky synth chorus part, and then all of a sudden like the song would just start speeding up. And so it's like I think you just have to gauge on just like, yes, it's totally acceptable to have backing tracks. There's like nothing weird about it, but I would just look at like the other factors, and I would chat with the stage manager about it, just so that they can properly accommodate and just make sure that you do have like something to back it up.
So do they allow sound, or is there time commitment allowed for mixing backing tracks to the sound kit, or do they just give the lines to somebody and hope they can mix?
Yeah, like 9 times out of 10, like they'll sound check like the first band. Usually like a band will get a sound check, but it's usually the very first band at a showcase, and then they set the levels to that first band. So if you're doing something that's like just like a little bit different, then just make sure that like you're having those conversations well in advance so that they can properly plan for it. And just have like just some sort of like backup too. If you feel like that there might be an issue with like, say there's like 20-minute changeovers and you feel like some things might not be like happening okay, so you just think about like an additional alternative, like where you might not be performing to a click, but you can just play the backing tracks through like an iPod, and then you can play to it live, just to like, I think you have to like think on the fly, because I do think that sometimes it'll work in your favor. Sometimes I think that, something might happen like heat on your laptop. So if there's something specific, I can definitely like chat more with you about it.
No, it's just a it's sort of a protocol or almost an ethic or moral.
Yeah.
If people won't get upset at that, so it sounds like it's acceptable.
Yeah, totally. Also too, like if you do ever get a chance, say like you do have backing tracks and it does sound like a 5-piece band and it's just you up there and you're playing guitar over top, I don't think that will have the same effect as a 5-piece band performing and all like rocking out and putting on a show. Mm-hmm. That's another like aspect of it to kind of like take into account. Mm-hmm. Yeah, John?
Yeah, real quick, describing your music using Surf Dads as an example, is it better to say, hey, we're a death pop band, or is it better to say, we're Weezer on speed? You have a choice. Which one would be the one you would say?
I think that would depend on who you're talking with. If it's somebody that maybe like you're unsure like where to go like about it, yeah, I would use the Weezer on speed because it's a band that somebody knows and they can relate to it. If it's somebody that's like like does like certain type of festivals, like into heavier stuff, then like maybe referencing Surf Dads, like yeah, totally. I think you can just gauge just like who you're like chatting with, because I think it'll be different.
Depends on how hip they are.
Yeah. Everyone's hip. Maybe. No, I don't know. That's it. Yeah. Fact.
Marvin, you talked a lot about like using social media to your advantage. Do you have any experience like as far as drumming up support for like a showcase event? Would you ever use something like targeted advertising or like the Facebook marketing or social media marketing, like the advertisements?
Yeah, we've tried in the past. It's really easy to throw your money away with it, but it's also really easy to make it work in your favor if you know someone that knows what they're doing. That is almost like, you wouldn't bring on like a drummer that kind of knows how to drum, right? Like I have some people that I could, I guess, like send you their email, like that are there to like, you hire them for like a little bit, and then they make sure that they're targeting that region for fans that like your kind of, I guess like dive type band in that area, in that demographic. But it's so easy just to throw money away at it. It's got to be like a deliberate effort. We did that for South by, and that ended up working.
I also think you have to kind of gauge like who you want at your show. Like, do you want public or do you want industry?
Yeah.
And I think just to kind of like, because a lot of times if you do get the opportunity to showcase or attend a conference, it's going to be industry that's going to be flying in from around the world. So I think that like if you're looking at, say, like if it is South by Southwest and like your showcase is open to the public and you just want a full room and you want to be performing but still inviting key industries, then I think you can work that to your advantage. But other times too, like sometimes showcasing, it's only for industry and that's it. So if you're going to be spending ads, like, yeah, like people might be able to see like your band, but they can't get in. So it might just work against you. So if there is something specific that you want to like attend, like for example, Halifax Pop, the public can attend the show. So that's something that you're looking at doing. Targeted advertising, like have a music video playing like on their Facebook feed. Like, yeah, that's like something that could work for you.
I guess this is like an oddly specific example too, but like say Upstream Festival that we played in Seattle, it's like, I don't know, would you say that the summit part is kind of smaller? Like it's not as industry facing as something like The Great Escape, I guess. So a lot of kids would just go to the festival because like there's big bands on a big stage as well, like Miguel and the Flaming Lips and like Jawbreaker and stuff. And then we did use ads for that. And that actually worked out really, really well, specifically because we knew Seattle, like you got to be specific with it though. It's just specifically we knew Seattle has selection artists have like fan bases from first and second generation immigrant kids. And those kids ended up coming to our show and were like, oh, I didn't think an Asian band would play. We just came to see an Asian band. So in that sense, yeah, but you got to be super specific with it.
Is there any questions online?
Not yet, no.
Okay, cool, just wanted to make sure. Anybody else? Yeah.
What about showcases for different genres like jazz? Where do you showcase, and which showcase can you apply where you have a chance of meeting people who are interested in the genre of music you're doing?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I would say, like for jazz, I would start focusing on the markets that like jazz has like really prominent place, like New Orleans. There's Madame. I think it's still in France.
In Cannes.
Oh, in Cannes. Yeah, like that's where I would start focusing. Like if there's like certain people, like if there's certain bands, like jazz artists that you've noticed that are like they're kind of like they're still in like that emerging stage, or say that they've had some like significant successes, but they are doing like other festivals. I guarantee that they are doing those other festivals because they are attending certain conferences. And I would just kind of put in the research to figure out where they played, and then just to kind of have it on your radar. But also like reach out to them. I don't know like if that's something like sometimes like people like they don't like to give away like their secrets or like any sort of tips, but I do think it is worth just to reach out, even if you like end up playing a show with them, just to like just ask questions if they're open to it. Some people are, some people aren't. You like you could always like consult with like SaskMusic, and we like if we don't have a dedicated answer right now, we will start asking through our channels to find you like just stuff that can like work in your favor. But yeah, I totally know what you mean, because like besides like sometimes like jazz and the folk festivals get morphed into one, and sometimes there's a lot of industry that pulls and they'll kind of just work together. But like in terms of like just a dedicated like jazz conference, you know, just at the top of my head, like I can't think of one directly to jazz, but I can think of that like tons of jazz artists play a lot of world music festivals that have worked out into like additional bookings, like Montreal, like that's another one in Montreal. Actually, it's happening third week of November, right before I'm from Montreal. It's actually run by the same people. So one of the like really great things about like Montreal is that they're one-on-one networking sessions that you can like sign up for, and then you show up early, and then like they have like a list of people, and it's a little bit chaotic, but you actually get to run around and you actually get to like start like registering your name to have a one-on-one session. You get about 10 minutes of just FaceTime with somebody. And like just through that and just having that like personal interaction, like sometimes like really cool things can come out of it, but also you can use that as an opportunity to ask, like, what else are you attending? Where are you finding your bands for your festival? Or as a jazz artist, is there anything that you recommend that I should be doing? This is what, like, these are where my influences are. I think there's like a few things that could be taken into account, but like, love to chat with you more. Yes. Sorry, did that answer your question? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure because I can ramble. Sorry, Ryan.
Yeah, to piggyback on it, there's one in Victoria. Like, I forget the thing, but what happens is a lot of, like, say, our Regina Jazz Society, they'll send a representative and they have booking people there, and it'll look almost like buying a car. So, like, hey, here's this artist, they charge $600 for a show. They charge that. So they look at their budget, and that's how they book. They say, okay, well, we're going to spend a lot of money on this concert, so we need to look at this sort of art. So we're going to look at this. We have this sort of budget, so we're going to do that. And they'll book a lot of their festival stuff from that conference. So that would be the one to go. I know it's in Victoria. I think it's the Victoria Jazz.
Yeah, I tried actually. I sent them an email because I was interested in doing that and never got a reply. And months after, I got a reply saying that, no, we're not linked with any festival in particular. We need to contact each festival independently. So I was kind of confused with that answer about that.
And I know for that, it's not booking an act. They book like an agency who has a roster of acts, right? And so then that's how they do it. Not like we're getting individual people, but getting this agency that brings their roster of artists, like Trifecta would be booked.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to almost like that. I think it was like the second or third slide about every festival and like showcasing thing. If you're looking to perform, like they all look for like different things, and sometimes like they'll work with like a booking agency, for example, or they're looking for emerging talent because sometimes they, you know, like they're bringing in a hub of industry that are looking for like new bands for them to book, or just something like that. I think there's like a lot of like factors that go into play, but I also like completely understand that it is like really frustrating to like approach and just like if you're just getting like dead ends too, like because like I always like think of like sometimes like festivals like they look at around like 2,000 like submissions and then you know and only 200 bands get to play or something like that, which is like that's a pretty huge festival, but it is like just something to kind of like just to, like keep an account. If you find that it like works towards as like a dead end. You know, just to kind of like, I would just begin just to move on to like the next thing. But this is definitely like something that we could definitely chat about. Sort of Brady?
Yeah. Do you find more success with like meeting people from conferences and festivals and then applying, or is it like just blind, like you send an application and it's accepted? Like have you had a lot of success like searching out for, you know, like Talent Music Week, like making contact with those people, and that's kind of the only way where you got your name?
Definitely the
the next step.
Definitely the first one.
Yeah.
Like, I guess there was like a panel with a whole bunch of bookers specifically, and then they straight up said like the amount of people that they book from the submissions are maybe like 5%. And usually they'll already have someone in their mind that they've already met or seen live or something. So yeah, for us, I would say if you do get a chance to go to BreakOut West or any of these, or even like Canadian Music Week's a really good one. They have like a one-on-one mentorship sessions. And anytime there's a one-on-one mentorship session, you should always look at it early, book your stuff with people, because then there's like Mikey who books like I'm from Montreal. Forgot the dude's name right now, but the dude that he something to do with like the Great Escape. Usually if you can find these festival bookers and introduce yourself, probably email first, reach out, find a way to meet up with them in person, usually do like a one-on-one mentorship thing. Hopefully you guys vibe, get them to your show, and then if they like you, then they like you.
Sometimes when you showcase at a festival, like especially if it's on an international scale, what we find is like it's really confusing to say you're from Saskatchewan or you're from Manitoba or you're from like British Columbia. Like like we're all neighbors, but a lot of times like everything will be branded as a Canada House. Say like if we're out in Germany and it just says like Canada House. Well, like a lot of festival buyers will see that because they see what's coming out of Canada and they're like, oh, like I booked this band. What else is coming out? I really want to just be like, people will just go just because of like the brand. And a lot of times that you'll just kind of get to meet other people just from being there. But it also helps by like when you are reviewing that delegate list, just to kind of like understand like their faces and like what they actually do, because you might get to meet somebody just in passing and it might just end up working out into something like that. 90% of the people I want to say are really approachable. Like they're expecting to be approached. That's why they're there. Even if they like just have a normal angry looking face, they might not be, or it just never hurts. Like you have nothing to lose. You have like there's the more people that say no to you, you should use that as fire, as to figure out that yes. Because I understand, like it is like really unnerving when people say no, or they just say, I'm sorry, I just don't have the time. That's okay, because like you don't know what they're going through or like what they have planned throughout their day, but you might be able to like, get a contact that you can just follow up with them, and maybe that next thing that you end up going to, they have some free time, and like because like there was an interaction already, it might lead into something else. Like Marvin talked about Mikey from Montreal. And this is like a relationship that we have been building as like SaskMusic, like just a really long time with Mike. And now Mikey, he always makes a point to come out and watch Saskatchewan bands, just because of like, we've always had Saskatchewan artists play from Montreal, and there's been really awesome successes that have come out of it. But he always just sees it as like cool. Like he'll like text it. Like now we actually have a friendship basis that we can text each other, but he'll like reach out to like either myself or like Mike Dawson and just like, hey, like who are your bands? He might even say like, this is who I'm looking for, or just be like, cool, like I want to come show hopping with you guys and go see your bands, and like cool, like, and it's just worked into that sort of like relationship. But things take time to like develop, and people will always want to work with bands and artists that they trust.
Yeah, so the personal connection always works. And like when you do research too, like when you look up Mikey on Google, he's obviously like quite the character. So he's like totally someone you could say hi to. Like the first time I met him was just like Canadian Music Week, and I was at Montreal before like Jazz Cartier blew up, and I was like, are you the Mikey guy that booked Jazz Cartier? And then he somehow recognized me. He was like, are you the samurai guy? So then like when they have a personality like that, then it's like it's usually okay. But that stuff you can tell off like I don't know how many abrasive tweets they have on Twitter or something like that.
Yeah, and like if there's like anything that like to really take away from this session is follow up. Just like, yes, like we're talking about like reaching out to people, but just always follow up. Just is so crucial. I want to say like 45% is like being there as a face. The other 65% is like how you follow up.
I have another one if that's
yeah.
When you get booked, are you like immediately sending emails, or is there like a time frame that's perfect for you to like line up that's a week out?
That's a great question.
That's a good one. Research first, because it's really hard. Because sometimes the delegate lists aren't released all at once too. So it's good to like, so you don't have a whole bunch of research to do all at once. Try to do the research as early as you can, make your notes. But the emailing should be kind of closer to them. Like, I don't know, for us it's like 2 weeks to a week before. Otherwise it just gets lost or forgotten about. Or even if we do it super early, then we'll like keep track. So then before that, like, hey man, just like following up, stoked to see you like next week or something. Yeah, and that's like in the really formal sense with emails. A lot of the time now, especially if someone's younger, I guess a lot of the time it'll almost be easier to follow up just on Instagram, like DM something, because they'll probably take a story that they had this really, really good sausage roll, and it's just like, whoa, I just ate a sausage roll. And then you just like kept in touch with somebody. Like just look at the personality of that person and then your own person and see what works.
Right.
Also, like check the delegate list to any sort of conference that you're going to be attending once a week, because it's always going to update, and like who you try to like map out a month before, there could be like another extra like 50 people just to kind of have on your radar. So it's good to like just kind of like get in there early, and then to kind of start figuring out who you want to reach out to. Anything else? No? Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yep.
Is there a standard time dedication to a performance time?
Yeah, like I want to say pretty much in terms of like the majority of conferences are, I guess, like that have showcases. It's usually anywhere between 20 minutes to 25 minutes. If you get a 30-minute showcase, that is really rare. It's usually like 20 minutes, I would say. So always plan to have a 20-minute set, but also have a few songs on the back burner just in case if the next artist is not ready and they just need to keep things going. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, it's warm in here. Yeah. I can't thank you enough for coming out, and like I know like the weather's not the greatest. It's pretty chilly out, and this is really awesome. Like, you know, please use like SaskMusic as a resource. If there's a conference that you're planning on going to, or if there's something that you want to like return to, if there's like anything that like we can help out with, if it's, you know, like you start mapping out the delegates that you want to reach out to, like share that with us, because we might have like a personal connection that we can like even do an introduction email and just kind of like just go right to the source. This is something that like we're just always open to like to chat with you about, like literally anything to do with music. But if you are like planning on attending a conference, also like we chat a lot about like having a realistic business plan and a marketing plan. If you ever have any questions about those, and like if you ever want to just like start mapping stuff out, you want to like do a bit of a brainstorming session or like literally anything, let us know, because we can start mapping stuff together. But we can also start looking at, you know, like if one of your goals is to start like showcasing, like cool, then we can start looking at certain criteria just to make sure that those are being met, and then just kind of like work together on like how to figure those out. So up here we have like just email contacts. I just put mine down, it was specifically for just like this session, as well as Marvin's, but like anybody from SaskMusic is like open and down to chat, and like, you know, like our offices are open, like pop in, like try to call in advance just to make sure that person is there and they're like not like stuck in a meeting or something. But like when we're talking about follow-up, like there was like Marvin provided me with an email on how he followed up with a certain industry after North by Northeast. I was going to include it in here, but like because of the PowerPoint, it just stretched it all out. It was just like really weird to read. So if that is something that you want to like look at, just email either of us and we can like just quickly send you a bit of a template. Not necessarily saying like this is like 100% that's going to work for you. You should always personalize it, but it does give you something to like work off of. If you need ideas on like reaching out to industry, like just let us know. And like for those of you that are going to be out at BreakOut West, like we'll all just like, we'll all see you there. You know, and yeah, it's just one of those things. Like I can't thank you enough for like coming out and like taking this in, because it's, you know, like you're taking your career seriously, and you know, there's obviously like there's certain steps. There's been all kinds of successes that Saskatchewan bands have been having in the past 5 years that have opened up a ton of doors for like the next wave of bands that's going to be coming out. So like, you know, like I said, like we're in this together, like community build, reach out to your fellow like other like musicians, like ask them questions if they've been attending stuff, because that information is so valuable and goes such a long way. And I want to say that there's so many musicians that are just open to sharing just their past experiences and what worked for them and what didn't work for them. I also really want to thank like Creative Saskatchewan and Factor for, again, all their support, for just allowing us to do these sort of like educational opportunities, to be able to just to chat about this. Like this is really awesome. Like if I like 5 years ago, there would never be a day I would actually get to think that, you know, I'd get to attend conferences, but then actually just get to chat with you about it. So this is really awesome. And like last but not least, like I can't thank you enough, Marvin, for like taking part of this. You know, the skills that like we're in like Saskatoon tomorrow, but like I can chat about conferences and showcases like from SaskMusic's point of view all day, but it's really good to actually have an artist point of view and like somebody who's like been like through it all, like, and even to like talk about like struggles of like, we put on so much, like we like had to turn down like a certain showcase in Singapore because like things just got way too intense. Like I think to add that human aspect, because I think when you're looking at like a submission form or any sort of like grant application, like it can be really daunting, and it can like, you know, you're expecting a lot, and if there's like any way we can help out, like we absolutely will, to provide like any sort of advice. So thank you for just being a part of this. I really appreciate that.
No, I'm used to it. Specifically, or like examples of things, you can always just email me too. Like if you just Google like Trifecta YQR, either our social or our website, or even like my band Samurai Champs, all of our artists and my whole band's like pretty versed in this kind of stuff now, and obviously we wouldn't really be here without other bands helping us. So if you guys want like examples or whatever, all of our people are usually pretty down to help.
Also, we'll email you all a feedback form. If you could fill it out, that would be awesome. We would love to hear what you'd like to see more of. We're always taking topic suggestions, so that'll be coming in the next couple of days.
Cool. And also, like, just with your questions, like, we're going to take this into account, because at some point we're going to try to figure out to create some sort of master document that we can either put up on our website, or just like something that we can be handing out. It's not going to cover everything, but like we are going to like put a lot of like the topics that we did discuss, and you can work it as like towards like a bit of a cheat sheet. So that's it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ed.